The Abendego Gulf, Mediogalti, the Sodden Lands, and the city-state of Jaha. This week on my region deep dive, I'm tackling a fairly large geographic region, which I'm calling the Abendego Gulf. This region is dominated in its center by the vast perpetual storm known as the Eye of Abendego. I'm also including in this region two separate countries, the tropical island nation of Mediogalti and the stormy, boggy coastline of western Garund, known as the Sodden Lands. Along with the Sodden Lands, I'm going to discuss a few significant cultures that can be found either in the Sodden Lands themselves or in the northern periphery of the Sodden Lands, where the marshes and Napsoon mountain foothills meet the central Mwangi jungle. These include the human remnants of the former nations of Lirgeni and Yamasan, the Iruxi Turwa Lords, the Matanji Rain Orcs, and the Kallijae Elves. Finally, since much of the Lirgeni diaspora ended up there, I'm also going to cover the northern city-state of Jaha in this video as well. Although it also lies on the periphery of the Great Storm, I'm not going to include a discussion of the shackles in this video, because I've already discussed the shackles in my previous deep dive. Much of this region's history is also covered in additional detail in my Western Mwangi Expanse video, which is up on the channel already, and I encourage you to check out as well. The history of the Abendego Gulf. Of all the regions I've covered in my regional deep dives, none have changed topographically so much as the Abendego Gulf. Prior to the Earthfall Cataclysm, this region was comprised of a jungle lowland, surrounded by high mountain peaks, and it was the heart of the Cyclops Empire of the Gulgan. Their capital city lay at the heart of this jungle, and it was called Sarban. In the early period of their civilization, the Gulgan were a peaceful people, and they worshipped a number of sky gods associated with the sun and moon. At some point, after the establishment of Sarban, in a period now called the Age of Serpents, emerging from the deep places of the earth, the great enemy of the Gulgan reached the surface, at the jungles that lay east of the Turwa Lake and the Magumo Plains. These conquerors were the Darklands' native serpent folk, and they built a vast empire for themselves, with a capital at their emergence point, the mighty city of Savanth Yi. The Age of Serpents was followed by a period called the Age of Legend, which marked the establishment of the human nation of Aslant on an island continent west of the Gulgan Empire. Elven civilization also reached its peak in the Age of Legend. The elves had come to Golarion from another world, and they forged a kingdom for themselves in the Mwangi Expanse called the Laura-Shay Kingdom, centered around their waygate called the Hunter Gate. Together, the Cyclops, the Aslanti, and the Laura-Shay formed an alliance, and only with the united strength of all three peoples were they able to defeat the serpent folk at their capital of Savanth Yi. Towards the end of the Age of Legend, the elves and the Aslanti humans ultimately broke their ties with the Cyclops. After the defeat of the serpent folk, the Gulgan Empire experienced a period of steep decline, characterized by worship of corrupting outer gods from the Dark Tapestry, and a descent of their once great culture into barbarism. Whether the Cyclops would have emerged from this dark age is not known, because in the midst of this cultural decay, a terrible event occurred that would forever alter not just the region, but the entire Pathfinder world. A large meteor came crashing down towards the planet of Golarion. It broke apart in the upper atmosphere into many chunks, and then proceeded to rain fire down from the heavens. The island continent of Aslant was utterly destroyed, as was their entire civilization. The Cyclops Empire fared just as badly. A large chunk of the meteor collapsed into the center of their jungle lowland. The entire western shelf of Garund collapsed into the ocean. Only a small perimeter remained, the highest mountain tops that once demarcated the periphery of the Gulgan Empire. These formed the Turwa Uplands, the islands of the Shackles, and the island of Mediogalti. The Gulgan capital of Sarban was crushed, and it sank below the sea, passing out of all history. In its place lay the wide Abendego Gulf. Although the Gulf was created during the Earthfall Cataclysm, it was not as it is today, as the Eye of Abendego had not yet opened. Instead, it remained a wide, placid pool through many of the following ages. In the interior of Garund, the elves of the Laura-Shay Kingdom were thankfully spared any direct impacts from the meteor, but they quickly realized that the ecological devastation of the Earthfall Cataclysm would be swift and terrible. The elves all across Golarion resolved to leave the world behind and return to their homeland of Severian. This occurred all across Golarion, except among the Laura-Shay. The greatest seers of the Laura-Shay foresaw that Golarion might yet emerge from the Age of Darkness, after a time, but not if the great evil that was coming was not stopped. This great evil they foresaw was the dragon god Jaha, the Sorrow Maker, a dark deity drawn to great calamities who reveled in destruction. The Laura-Shay resolved to remain in Golarion, even though the rest of their kin fled back through the Ayadara, the Elvish waygates. After a great battle with the dragon god, the Laura-Shay sacrificed a great many of their kin to bind the avatar of Jaha to the gate network and prevent him from manifesting fully on the material plane. In so doing, they shut down the gate network, and they would thereafter remain separated from the rest of the elven race for thousands of years. The Mualaje ultimately separated into 3 distinct peoples. Some chose to stay behind, assuming the responsibility of protecting the Hunter Gate and guarding against the possible return of Dahak. These became the Ekuje. Some embarked on a mission to purify the corrupted city of Nagisa on the eastern end of the Mwangi jungle. These became the Alajay. Finally, a third group directed their efforts towards challenging the city of Vusaro in the central Mwangi jungle, which we'll discuss in a little more detail shortly. It is this last group, the Kallijae, I'll discuss further today. The Age of Darkness was a difficult time for humanity. With the sun gone and predatory creatures multiplying, many turned to dark gods who made promises of security. We've seen this happen again and again across the world of Golarion, such as in my recent Nidal region deep dive video. It also happened at the center of Lake Okota, when Bekyar tribesfolk established the city of Usaro. In honor of their bloodthirsty patron Angazan, they constructed a massive skull-shaped locus of the demon lord's power known as the Altar of Angazan. Through the power of this ancient structure, the Chara Ka were born, and their master, who took the likeness of their demon lord, a massive demonic ape, became known as the Gorilla King. Thereafter, the city-state of Usaro controlled the southern half of Lake Okota, but the Kallijae Elves opposed them on the north side of the lake, setting up their own strongholds there to keep the demonic cult from conquering the whole region. For centuries, the Kallijae sought to control the spread of this foul civilization, but the power of Angazan was great, and those humans who were not seduced by his cult were too weak and cowed to be of aid to the elves. Fortunately for the Kallijae, in the middle of the Age of Darkness, around -5102, as recounted in my recent Belkson deep dive video, the dwarves pushed the orcs to the surface. Although in Avestan the orc emergence was characterized by violent clashes with the Kellid locals, in Garund the orcs were received quite differently. The Kallijae had for a long time eagerly hoped for any skilled warriors that might aid in their long-standing war with the forces of the Gorilla King. Though the recently arrived orcs were not eager to engage in more conflict so soon after their defeat at the hands of the dwarves, the Gorilla King's Charaka armies forced their hand by being the aggressors in numerous conflicts. When the orcs first witnessed the horrifying transformation by which their own kin could be transformed into demon-worshipping Charaka, they made an alliance with the Kallijae that has persisted to this day. These orcs, sometimes referred to as Rain Orcs in Base Taldan, took the name Matanji for themselves, from the Mualaje dialect. In -4294, the sun crept back into the world. The Age of Darkness had finally ended, and the Age of Anguish had begun. Despite its ominous name, the Age of Anguish was a period of recovery for humanity. The Mwangi Expanse was one of the first places where civilization began to make a return. In -3502, the legendary Mwangi hero known as Old Mage Jatembe founded the city of Nantambu in the Mwangi Expanse, and established there a center of magical learning known as the Magambaya. 30 years after his magical school was established, the Age of Anguish was considered to have ended. The Age of Destiny, characterized by the formation of various advanced human cultures and civilizations, had begun. In the Mwangi Expanse, Jatembe's foremost magical disciples were known as the 10 Magic Warriors, and these immortal warrior prophets would each help bring back civilization over the course of the Age of Destiny, but none did so with more success than the Black Heron. In -2556, the Black Heron helped unite the Shori tribes, a human people that had resisted the predations of Uzaro's demonic cultists, thanks almost entirely to the intervention of Kallijae Elves and Matanji orcs over the long years of the Ages of Darkness and Anguish. The Black Heron united the Shori tribes and forged an alliance with the winged gorillas from the Barrier Wall Mountains known as the Derry, and then used his advanced knowledge of aeromancy to build the first flying platforms, upon which the Shori eventually constructed a number of incredible flying cities. Eventually the cults of Angazan were broken, with the defeat of Jacobu, a spawn of Rovagug, which had been the greatest asset in their war arsenal. From -2556 to -507, the rise of the Shori Empire brought an unparalleled level of peace to the region. With their air superiority, the great influence of Uzaro was ended, and the Shori were able to keep the cult contained to their blasphemous capital city. They did not, however, mount a direct assault on Uzaro itself, so though they were contained, they were not totally defeated. Yet in spite of the continued presence of the city-state of Usaro on the banks of Lake Okota, it would be fair to say that the 2,000-year Shori supremacy in the Mwangi Expanse was an unprecedented period of peace and safety in the region. For the first time, both Kallijae and Matanji cultures had an opportunity to build additional settlements and focus more inwardly. During this time, the Matanji established the basis for their 9 Walls nation-state, while the Kallijae established the island city of Haven, the center of their culture. West of the Napsoon foothills, the Abendego Gulf coastline had become the principal domain of various Iruxi and Kobold tribes. In fact, both reptilian ancestries could be found in small villages all around the Gulf, from the dwarven city of Clareng to the furthest reaches of Mediogalti Island. In the middle years of the Age of Destiny, their supremacy in these lands were unchallenged. Then the Shori Empire collapsed, and with that culture's downfall, the cult of Angazan and the city-state of Usaro returned to prominence in the central Mwangi jungle. Matanji and Kallijae tribes were forced on the defensive, and many of their cities on the outskirts of Lake Okota were razed. In the year 1, by Absalom reckoning, there came a period of significant growth among the northern nations of Avestan, particularly the Empire of Taldor, which began to expand rapidly during what they deemed to be the Age of Enthronement, so named because it was the age in which their empire was sponsored by the living god and ascended deity Aradin. By 2203, various Taldan exploratory vessels would start to chart the western coastline of Garund, and in particular the vast archipelago known as the Shackles. The region would start to be settled by northern colonialists. In 2498, the Oath Wars began in northwestern Garund. The Oath Wars were a large conflict between the clergies of Nethys, Norgorber, and Sarenrae, in order to decide which among them would become the dominant religion in northwestern Garund. The initial spark in this conflict was struck when the newly embraced religion of Sarenrae, brought by Kaleshi migrants, began spreading into the region, coming into conflict with the already established religions of Nethys and Norgorber. Once it began, it became an all-out war. The beginning of the end of this conflict was in 2555, when the angry citizens of Azir began burning down all the temples and banishing all clerics from their territory. Led by the philosopher Kalem Unaku, a new philosophy was introduced to replace religion. It came to be known as the Laws of Mortality. The laws of mortality spread quickly across the land. The other cities likewise abolished religion, swore to uphold the new laws, and were welcomed into what would soon become the nation of Rahadum. The laws spread throughout the region, causing the total eviction of all religiously minded people on pain of death. Two significant such migrations were as follows. In 2557, when the astronomer and philosopher Saok and his followers, the Saok Brethren, journeyed south, and in 2559, when members of the cult of the Red Mantis, following a vision received by their blood mistress Ximena from their god Achekek, relocated to Mediogalti Island, and began to build their Crimson Citadel atop the craggy mountains that jutted out from the island's interior. Concurrent with the Red Mantis settlement in the heart of the large jungled island, piracy was becoming increasingly common in the Taldan colonies of the Shackles Islands. By about 40 years after the cult of the Red Mantis began construction on the Crimson Citadel, the Red Mantis cult realized it would be profitable to establish a port city and open trade with the nefarious pirate captains to the south. This would become the city of Ilismagorti, built beside the northern lagoon that had been frequented by pirates anyway, as a popular stopover point for repairs. The cult of the Red Mantis established the city as a sort of free port for pirate vessels, while also keeping their true allegiance to the Crimson Citadel and the Red Mantis cult relatively secret. In the 2,000 years since the city's founding, word has since gotten out about the city's masters, but most pirates don't care, as the fearsome reputation of the Red Mantis cult has so far deterred foreign navies from launching punitive expeditions against the city. Meanwhile, along the Abendego coast, more and more religious exiles continue to flee from Rahadum to the Saok Brethren city of Hirantam. By the year 2800, Hirantam had become the capital city of a flourishing nation named Lirgen, a united land with provincial governors who ruled through the application of Saok's own enlightened philosophies of spiritual astrology. Because of their close proximity to the Matanji and Kallijae people, the Lirgeni developed close partnerships and alliances with their eastern neighbors. They did not, however, build friendly relations with the Iruxi tribes that had occupied these lands before the coming of Saok and his followers. Initial misunderstandings between the two people led to violence, and eventually the Iruxi came to be viewed as primitive savages, dangerous to the sophisticated Lirgeni citizens, and after losing a number of violent conflicts, the Iruxi were forced to retreat from territories where the Lirgeni would establish settlements. A half-century or so after Lirgen was established, around 2850, a particularly xenophobic group of Lirgeni established their most eastern city, at the site of the Iruxi settlement of Jaha, at the northern edge of the Mwangi jungle. They brought with them their Lirgeni superiority, and not only took the city by force, but thereafter enslaved the Iruxi who had occupied the city before them. They did so by decree of their leader, who went by the lofty title the High Star Seeker, and whose fanatical followers believed the stars themselves were guiding them to put the savages to use for them. This faction displayed the bleakest xenophobia of the philosopher-priests who governed Lirgen, and even at the height of Lirgeni prosperity, the Jahans remained a group apart from the rest of Lirgen. This isolationist sect eventually established a separatist theocracy, built upon a star-born prophecy issued by their High Star Speaker, a prophecy that promised Jaha to their sect and all their descendants forever as their holy and ancestral right. Meanwhile, the principal territories of Lirgen, along the Abendego coast, continued to flourish. Their wealth and influence grew not only due to their mastery of divination, but also due to the abundance of available resources in the south of the country, which was diligently labored over by an underclass of hard-working farmers and herders. Over the next half-millennium, a growing divide began to grow between the laborers of the south and the stargazers of the north. In 3257, the laborers finally had enough, and they cast aside their tools and took up arms. United in their cause, they embarked on a march directly towards the capital city of Hirantam. The resulting conflict, later known as the Yamasan Uprising, unfolded swiftly, lasting less than a year. The divination magic of the northern elite was no match for the determination of the angry United Southerners. By the culmination of the strife, the rebels emerged victorious, seceding from Lirgen and establishing their new independent nation called Yamasa, south of the Frogmarch River. Once freed from the yoke of the Lirgeni overseers, the Yamasans began to grow wealthy on the plentiful agrarian trade. Despite the loss of the Yamasan territories, Lirgen did not experience any kind of general national collapse. They eventually built more equitable trade agreements with the Yamasans, but their powerful mastery of divination continued to allow them success in securing the right trade partnerships and strategic alliances to remain a politically significant nation in the region. Yamasa, with its hard-working, more grounded citizenry, secured their defenses by developing a large standing army of skilled soldiers to make up for their lack of magical know-how. For over 1,300 years, Lirgen and Yamasa emerged as powerful Garundi nations. Though both emerged from the same original tradition, over this time period they grew into quite different nations. However, both were met with the same calamity. In 4606 came the Age of Lost Omens. The age is so named because thereafter most reliable forms of divination and prophecy used in previous generations had started to fail. In fact, in the leading years to this date, no divination had accurately predicted the calamitous series of events that would unfold, and bring about an end to the Age of Enthronement. It began with the death of Aradin. At once, all the clerics of the patron god of the Taldans and the Chelish found themselves without magic. Then other strange occurrences followed. That same year, the World Wound opened up near the crown of the world. Then, finally, a great storm erupted over the Abendego Gulf, a storm of such power and terror that it caused tidal surges across Lirgen and Yamasa. Along the coastlines, entire chunks of the coast collapsed into the sea. Whole cities were swallowed up. The storm, now dubbed the Eye of Abendego, was no natural event. It continues to rage unabated to this very day. The precise cause of this storm is not known, but the nations of Lirgen and Yamasa ceased to be afterwards. In the wake of the slow human evacuation from the territories, some Iruxi, especially the more militant Iruxi clan leaders, began to reconquer the Sodden Lands. The greatest among these clan leaders took the name the Turwa Lords. The Turwa Lords are now the greatest growing power in the Sodden Lands, an aggressive conglomeration of Iruxi conquerors who gained influence and territory at the expense of their more peaceful neighbors. As they conquer other villagers, they kill the leaders and assimilate the remaining population. Not surprisingly, many more peaceful Iruxis chose to join with the humans in their exodus from the land. Lirgeni living in the north of the country, especially those with family in Rahadum, made for the Napsun Gap and the Rahadumi city of Haldun. Yamasans tended to journey east, seeking shelter with their allies among the Matanji orcs, though some of course turned south, seeking refuge in the Turwa uplands among the Mbeke dwarves, in the Shackles, or even further south among the Bonawat villages of the western Mwangi region. Some Lirgeni made the hard trek east to find their deepest, most inland city-state, the reclusive city of Jaha, only to discover that the Jahans had sealed their walls and would admit no refugees into their city. The isolationist sect took the death of prophecy to be a sign that they needed to weather the storm by themselves and turned inwards. The Lirgeni refugees established small camps along the Mbembe River, and they would periodically return to the city over the years to seek admittance, but would always be denied. Considering how elitist the Lirgeni had been towards the Iruxi of their native lands, it is somewhat ironic that it was through the support of Iruxi, both native to the Mbembe River Valley and fellow exiles from Lirgen, that the Lirgeni diaspora of the Napsun foothills were able to survive the hard years following the death of prophecy. Meanwhile, in Mediogalti, only a few years later, the Council of the Vernai, or High Killers, who are the mysterious leaders of the Red Mantis cult, elected a new blood mistress. These High Killers are a cabal of powerful assassins, numbering only a few dozen, each having their own assigned regions of influence throughout Golarion, and though they mostly govern their own cells independently, they too serve a greater leader. This position is the position of the Blood Mistress, and her seat of power has been the Crimson Citadel on Mediogalti Island since its construction. A new Blood Mistress can only be named after a previous Blood Mistress's death, and the deadly honor can only go to a woman who has a support of 2/3 of the Council of the Vernai. In the early years of the Age of Lost Omens, the new Blood Mistress to come to power was Blood Mistress Jacqueline, a seemingly ageless woman of mixed Tian and Abystinian ethnicity. Blood Mistress Jacqueline has ruled over the Red Mantis cult continuously since her coronation, which means she has now ruled for over 100 years. In 4711, the Gorilla King was slain by adventurers. For the first time since the start of the Age of Enthronement, the great power of Vizaro is waning. The Kallijae and the Matanji and their allies are securing ground around Lake Okota and establishing more fortifications southwards and closer to the central lake. In 4713, a group of Lirgeni exiles once again sought out the city of Jaha. At the gates of Jaha, no answer came to the exiles from the Jahan sect. They knocked again and again, and no answer came. Finally, they scaled the city walls and had a look around. The isolationist sect had vanished. Their Uruxi slaves had vanished with them. The disappeared sect left behind technology, secrets, societal scars, and a host of other questions, none with easy answers. A combined group of Lirgeni exiles and Uruxi allies moved into the city, naming themselves the Jahaxi people to reflect their mix of ancestries. Today, Jaha is paradoxically both an ancient city and a brand new one. This brings us to today. The lands and cultures of the Abendego Gulf. In this video, I'm going to look at 5 critical cultures relevant to this region. I'll start with a look at the Red Mantis cult and at Mediogalti Island. Then I'll look at the Turwa Lords and the Sodden Lands. Then at the Matanji orcs and the Sodden Lands border territories. Then at the Kallijae Elves and their strongholds north of Lake Okota. And finally, we'll take a look at the recently rediscovered city of Jaha. Before we get to all that, let's take a quick moment to discuss the Eye of Abendego itself, the calamitous storm that serves as the center of the region I'm discussing today. When the fury of the first tidal waves relentlessly pummeled the western coast of Garund, submerging the nations of Lirgeni and Yamasan and giving birth to the waterlogged mire known as the Sodden Lands, it was presumed that in time the weather would abate. It did not. It remains to this day, ominously stationary, a great whirlpool surrounded by angry storming clouds. It's not a dead zone, however. Elemental lightning creatures flit here and there, and somewhere deep beneath its angry churning waves, dark creatures are said to dwell in the depths of long-lost Sarban. This malevolent storm's sudden appearance coincided with the demise of humanity's revered patron deity Aradin. Yet despite this temporal connection, scholars have struggled to learn why or how this happened, nor even how the storm remains in place or continues to rage. Surely powerful magic is at work. Attempts to explore the storm's heart in person have all failed, as explorers have been besieged by elementals, undead horrors, and other monstrous denizens of the deep. Nonetheless, the dangers have not deterred neighboring cultures from discovering ways to harness its power. For the infamous pirates of the Shackles, the hurricane's savage winds provide a natural defense against the navies of the northern realms. Furthermore, it acts as an effective blockade, compelling vulnerable traders seeking passage to the Mwangi Expanse to navigate perilously close to their pirate-infested isles. These pirate lords even organize an annual race along the hurricane's outskirts, known as the Free Captain's Regatta, where the victor is awarded with both an island and a coveted seat on the pirate council. Similarly, on Mediogalti Island, the Red Mantis cult has also embraced the storm's wrath as a buffer against invasion by foreign nations. Meanwhile, on the mainland, the Boggard tribes of the Sodden Lands venerate the storm as a manifestation of the chaotic deity Rovagug. In addition to worship of the storm as a manifestation of Rovagug, all around this region another strange cult has emerged, the Cult of the Eye, that says the storm is a sign of the coming of an entity they refer to as the deluged god. Regardless, for all the nations of this region, storms are considered commonplace, and all have adapted to monsoon rains and flooding as part of the natural order here. The Red Mantis cult and Mediogalti Island. Mediogalti Island, the largest island off of Garund's western coast, appears at first glance an untamed and perilous place. Its misty jungles are inhabited by a great many variety of fearsome dinosaurs. The island's indigenous peoples include Uruxi tribes and villages of diminutive but nevertheless ferocious kobolds and monkey goblins. The island's largest settlement, the deepwater port of Ilismagorti, has been a haven for pirates and ne'er-do-wells since its founding. However, beneath this chaotic surface lies a secretive and tightly controlled nation governed by one of Golarion's most dread organizations, the Cult of the Red Mantis. The god Achekek, also called He Who Walks in Blood, takes the form of a giant mantis, and is the patron god of both the Red Mantis cult and of assassins in general. According to some scriptures, Achekek was created by a collective of other gods to serve as an implement of retribution against mortals who might challenge divine authority. This god kills dispassionately, and he encourages his followers to do the same. The Red Mantis cult was once headquartered in Rahadum, where it traced its lineages all the way back to the days of the Jiska Imperium, the oldest human civilization since the collapse of Aslant. However, driven by a vision received by the cult's High Blood Mistress, said to have come from Achekek directly, they fled Rahadum during the Oath Wars and established their presence on the nearby island of Mediogalti. They constructed their new headquarters, the Crimson Citadel, deep within the island's mountains. Only 4 decades later, the cult established the pirate haven of Ilismagorti on the island's northern shore, and made it a sanctuary for criminals and fugitives seeking to contract the services of the assassins. While the precise location of the Crimson Citadel is known only to Red Mantis members, prospective clients seeking their services typically make their desires known in Ilismagorti. The Red Mantis cult is rumored to avoid taking too direct a hand in local governance. They do officially own all businesses on the island, however, with proprietors paying the cult directly for the privilege of operating in their city. The island's transient population of thieves and rogues remain exceptionally polite to both the city's permanent residents and the island's secretive rulers, owing to the assassins' well-earned reputation for their skill and savagery. The Red Mantis organization shrouds itself in mystery, but its agents, when active, are easily identifiable by their distinctive black and red armor, mantis-like helmets, and serrated sabers. The assassins are renowned not only for their impeccable reliability, but also for their commitment to ensuring that their targets remain permanently deceased, leaving no possibility for resurrection. Their fees, though non-negotiable, carry only a symbolic weight for the assassins, as the act of contract killing itself serves as a form of worship for the cult of the Red Mantis. All targets are fair game, except for the legitimate rulers of nations who are exempted by divine law. Rank-and-file agents organize themselves into cells to fulfill various contracts, but they all pay homage to the Blood Mistress, who acts as the unquestioned voice of Achekek, and to the Vernai, the High Killers' Council that serve under her. The current sovereign of the Crimson Citadel is the Blood Mistress Jacqueline. She has served as Blood Mistress of the Red Mantis cult and presided over the Council of the Vernai for over a century, almost the entire duration of the Age of Lost Omens. But she appears a youthful woman, with traces of both Chan and Taldan ancestry. The red streak in her hair echoes the sanguine hues of her murderous deity. Attempts to unearth records of her life prior to becoming the Blood Mistress, as well as those of her predecessors, have proved futile, with those who have embarked on such quests invariably finding themselves marked for assassination. While it's true that Blood Mistress Jacqueline serves a political function for the cult, she is also one of the most proficient killers in all of Golarion. Certain scholars and politicians are privy to a few deaths that she has openly acknowledged orchestrating. However, the majority of her deadly exploits exist solely as rumors. These range from the ancient and fantastical, like the supposed assassination of the god Aradin, to the recent and plausible, such as the mysterious demise of Lord Mayor Haldemir Groberas of Magnamar. 3 prominent assassinations that Jacqueline has openly confessed to executing herself are the murder of Halamendi Orus in 4620. He was the inaugural customer of Alkenstar's gunworks, and his purchase, a prototype magical firearm called the Contessa's Sting, vanished without a trace. The murder of Irlina Vosch in 4668, a beloved Galtan artist. Many regard this assassination as a catalyst for the eruption of the Red Revolution, which marked the start of Galt's current turbulent history. The murder of Professor Chandru Maka in 4700 on the eve of his major demonstration on recovered Shori magic, which sent shockwaves through the Magambaya Academy. Despite her fearsome reputation, these days Blood Mistress Jacqueline only rarely leaves the Crimson Citadel, preferring those who seek her aid to make the journey to Mediogalti Isle, navigate the deadly bureaucracy of her underlings to secure an appointment with her, and then survive the grueling overland journey to the Crimson Citadel itself. Even then, she may not deign to meet with a supplicant, or might finally meet them only to turn down their request. Stories of her slaughtering those who she deemed to have wasted her time have meant that only the very brave, capable, and determined have met with her personally. Important locations in Mediogalti. The Crimson Citadel. Although few know its exact location, many that know of the activities of the Red Mantis know well that it is situated in the high bluffs that lie in the middle of the Mediogalti jungle. If one were to make an aerial journey, such as on the back of a drake or griffin, it would not be hard to spot, because it is a massive and striking complex, carved of great red marble, its creation a true act of devotion to He Who Walks in Blood. It is a temple and a keep and a barracks all in one. Here, acolytes of the Red Mantis learn their tradecraft, the Council of the Vernai meet to discuss global affairs, and the Blood Mistress herself sets the course for the future of the cult for years to come. The citadel is not just an above-ground construction either, but it is carved into the mountain itself, comprising many lower levels. The major portions of the citadel include the above-ground structure, the main hall of which is called Odalis the Living Heart. Below ground there are various other facilities, such as the Ruby Halls of Rivari, which are the uppermost level of the citadel and comprise a deadly maze of traps and terrors to challenge lower-ranking assassins who seek to join the Vernai. The Grand Library of Sarzari, which contains meticulous records of all contracts carried out by the assassins, along with an astounding array of rare, magical, and dangerous tomes. The Honeyed Gardens of Sivlamlik, where the leaders of the Red Mantis and a rare few of their most important allies keep their own quarters, pleasure halls, trophy collections, and more. Finally, there is Finas the Iron Heart, which includes the greatest altar to Achekek on Galarian, along with the personal quarters of the Blood Mistress and several well-stocked and well-guarded treasuries. Beneath all of this, the deepest reaches of the citadel harbors crypts for the Red Mantis assassins' honored dead. The exact secret behind the magic that powers the Red Mantis crypts is unknown, but when a Red Mantis assassin is killed on assignment, their body dissolves into a fine red mist, leaving behind no weapons to loot nor evidence of their deeds. It is here the dead assassins are called to, and here that the faithful attendants of the Red Mantis cult embalm and entomb them. Ilismagorti. Known to the pirates and scoundrels who frequent her docks as the Black Pearl of the Tropics, Ilismagorti is a dual city. At once it is both a cesspool that collects the dregs of society, giving them a place to live out their hard, violent lives, and yet it is fat with the wealth of some of the most lucrative trades south of the Arch of Aradin. Its harbor is deep but well concealed, thanks to a wide, deep river hidden behind a jungle cleft. The city is only hinted at on most maps and charts, yet every pirate worth the bounty on their head knows the hidden routes that will take a ship there. Its deep lagoon harbors pirate ships that raid the shipping lanes from Varissia to Rahadum, as well as more mundane merchant barges from across Galarian, who know the city to be a safe neutral ground with which to barter with visiting pirate captains coming up from the shackles with their ill-gotten gains. Ilismagorti's azure waters are also home to reef claws, piranha-like devilfish, and the Kaneano, a mysterious tribe of Adaro sharkfolk that hunt among the outlying reefs and islets. Wild and unpredictable, the streets and quays of Ilismagorti are rife with pirates, assassins, harlots, sellswords, and scoundrels from all walks of life. For a city locked in the grip of an international cabal of feared assassins, its citizens appear to enjoy almost limitless freedoms. In Ilismagorti, the cult of the Red Mantis controls everything, from the finest inns to the shadiest dive bars. Businesses operated by non-members and independent merchants make payments to the cult, whether they're protection fees or taxes. The city has very few guilds, because the Red Mantis does not tolerate organized groups that could challenge their authority. Among the guilds that do exist, like the Sailmakers and Bargemen's Guild, such organizations all pay the cult protection money. While there's no official wizard guild in town, the Fraternal Order of Alchemists is an informal group of spellcasters that regularly meet at the Jade Monkey Tavern for knowledge sharing. Thieves' guilds are also totally absent, as the Red Mantis doesn't allow any other organized crime groups in their city, although there is a sizable independent kobold gang that engages in illicit activities on the rooftops. The kobolds are indigenous people to Mediogalti, and they and the Uruxi who dwell in the deep jungles continue to operate under their own rules. Finally, there is also a small cult of Norgorber who has managed to infiltrate the city, secretly headquartering themselves beneath the Twisted Anchor Tavern. This group offers some criminal services ignored by the Red Mantis, mostly theft and drug trafficking. The lack of organized guilds extends to foreign organizations as well. Both the Aspis Consortium and the Pathfinder Society have long sought to establish a presence in Ilismagorti, but the Red Mantis cult has consistently rejected their efforts. Whenever an agent from the Consortium or the Pathfinder Society is discovered in Ilismagorti, the Red Mantis typically either expel them or more often executes them on the spot. Another group opposed to the Red Mantis cult with ambitions on Ilismagorti is a coalition of Shackles pirates known as the Brotherhood of the Black Spot. Naturally, as the northernmost harbor of western Garund, the free captains very much wish that Ilismagorti in particular, and Mediogalti in general, were a part of the broader pirate confederacy. This group plots the downfall and conquest of Ilismagorti, but so far they have been more words than action. Despite the nation's close connection with Achekek, Ilismagorti is a religiously tolerant city, and churches of other deities may set up here, if they pay the appropriate tithes, of course. The most prominent deities with shrines and temples here include Gosray, Lin, and Bismara the Pirate Queen. In the Bilges, secret temples dedicated to the deluged god and the cult of the Eye can also be found. Of course, the largest temple in the city is the Pagoda of the Mantis, dedicated to Achekek. Although obviously Red Mantis faithful come here to find quiet moments of silent prayer and contemplation before embarking on an assignment, the large public temple of the Red Mantis here has attracted another unexpected group to the city. The firebrands have made it a dangerous game to swap an offering of Achekek with a token of another god. This risky dare has proven the downfall of several firebrands, but also made the name of a few others. For those who survive, the largest object taken grants the most bragging rights. The current champion is a plucky half-elf who goes by the name of Lucky 12s, who escaped after breaking off a claw the size of her arm from the Mantis statue. Not surprisingly, she is quite wanted now by the Red Mantis cult. Corruption is low in the city, as the Vernai's enforcers, the Blood Watch, easily recognizable in their blood-red armor, are particularly skilled at dispatching those who break their code. They serve as judge, jury, and executioner, and happily hang criminals on Yardarm Bridge for any serious infraction. Drinking, gambling, and entertainment at the Blood Circus are popular pastimes, as are sailing, taking in cultural events at the Nymphalium, and treasure hunting in the surrounding hinterlands. The mayor of Ilismagorti offers no name, and is simply called the mayor. They are a shapeshifter and a prominent member of the Vernai. Rumors have circulated that the mayor is male, and that Dorel may be their name, but it might also be that this is just one of the mayor's many guises. Dorel appears as a bald Mwangi man, and it's in this guise that he makes formal appearances. As a shapeshifter, the mayor has been known to walk the city in disguise, assuming various forms and acquiring unparalleled knowledge of the city's affairs, even those certain groups may wish to keep secret from the Red Mantis cult. Few things occur in this city of which the mayor is not informed. Points of interest in the city include the Bargemen's Guild headquarters. Nestled amidst the upscale establishments of Jawbone, the Bargemen's Guild headquarters stands as an unassuming hub for the city's waterborne workforce. These guild members handle a range of tasks, from transporting goods and passengers along the canals to guiding ships through treacherous waters. Bargemaster Hezwa Mitabo, a skilled mariner, leads the guild, fiercely protecting its interests and dutifully paying taxes to the Red Mantis. Besmara's House. Located in the Wharves, Besmara's House is Ilismagorti's second largest temple, dedicated to the Pirate Queen. Captain Priest Ranos Blackarm leads the clergy, who also offers letters of marque and flags of convenience for pirate raids. The Hospice of Serenity. Located in the Bilges, the Hospice of Serenity is a haven for the destitute, offering aid and healing to the slum's residents. The Sisters of Serenity, led by Head Sister Mary, are recognizable by their shaved heads and white attire, and provide care to those in need, requesting donations only if possible. The Jungle Runners. Outside Ilismagorti's walls in the Westergreen, the Jungle Runners offer wilderness expeditions into the dangerous jungles surrounding the city. They do good business with both eager treasure hunters and wealthy nobles in search of dinosaur heads for their game rooms. The expedition leaders for these trips are typically the ranging duo of Erandlon Half-Elven and Budgkis Tallwoman. The Murdered Manticore. A low-key pub in the Medina, the Murdered Manticore serves as a meeting place to hire mercenaries and adventurers. Owned by the stern ex-Andoran mercenary known as Mr. Shark, the establishment enforces strict rules against violence. The pub's basement, which houses the owner's pet jigsaw sharks, is rumored to be how Mr. Shark disposes of those who break the rules. Market Square. Beneath the towering walls of Sawtooth Keep lies Ilismagorti's bustling marketplace. Various stalls and shops offer a wide range of goods, from nautical equipment to exotic items. Axabas Fithrottledig operates a general store and outfitter, while artisan blacksmith Arnak Bjornsson crafts blades, including special sawtooth sabers for the Red Mantis cult. The Undine fortune-teller Zostrana Sebek sells prized shark leather goods, in addition to providing divination services. Obari Imports. In the heart of the mainmast district, Obari Imports is a treasure trove of rare and magical items from across the Inner Sea. Run by Sanjit Ralama Pakesh, this shop caters to those seeking unique components, magic items, and more. Sanjit keeps himself well guarded and is always accompanied by twin Vudrani bodyguards. He is also known to buy magic items from trusted customers, including those that might be difficult to offload elsewhere, such as cursed items. The Pagoda of the Mantis. Situated in Redshore, this is the largest public temple dedicated to Achekek anywhere in the Inner Sea region. Seaside Betty's. Located on a rickety dock in the wharves, Seaside Betty's is a brothel run by the eponymous Seaside Betty. Like many other infamous brothels across the Abendego Gulf region, Seaside Betty's is known as much for its function as a useful information broker as it is for its more intimate services. The Songbird Preserve. The Three Sisters, which are islands located in the lagoon center, house the Songbird Preserve, a collection of beautiful gardens tended by Jaxira de Ralamir. The preserve also doubles as a temple, where Jaxira herself presides as a rare priestess of Shaylin. The Nymphalium. Also on the Three Sisters, the Nymphalium is an open-air amphitheatre offering regular performances. Signore Origente Gamaron, a Taldan playwright in exile, directs the shows and hosts visiting bards. The village of Cuttle. Though Ilismagorti is recognized as the only major port city on Mediogalti Island, there do exist a few other settlements, the most significant of which is the whaling village of Cuttle on the island's western coast. This village is little more than a haphazard collection of mostly wooden buildings clustered along the beach where the jungle meets the shore. Cuttle has for a long time served as an outpost for the brave whalers who hunt the massive behemoths roaming the Arcadian Ocean. Like all who seek to make a home for themselves on Mediogalti Island, these whalers must pay the Red Mantis cult for the privilege of conducting their business here, often making their payments in casks of rendered whale oil. Although it is a much smaller port than Ilismagorti, it nevertheless sees a good deal of traffic. The presence of the Eye of Abendego means most ships bound from Avestan to western Garund track the wider outer loop around Mediogalti Island, and Cuttle stands as the southern and westernmost point, making it a convenient stopover for any ship seeking to replenish supplies or make repairs. In the last 100 years since the Eye opened, Cuttle has therefore been slowly transforming from a small whaling village to a growing trade hub. Ganda Uj. High in the canopy of Mediogalti's jungle perches a strange settlement constructed of swinging vines, swaying bridges, and tree bark huts, precariously balanced on rickety platforms. This is Ganda Uj, the largest city of monkey goblins in northern Garund. Travelers journeying through monkey goblin territory, even red mantis groups, do so in large, well-armed groups, for smaller parties are easy prey for the monkey goblins, who swoop out of the trees with nets and poison darts to dispatch trespassers and loot their goods. As mentioned in my Shackles deep dive video, since the Obgoblin Bandu fleet moved into the Shackles 5 years ago, their reputation and their reliance on their more diminutive goblin and monkey goblin cousins has started to shift the prevailing view of goblins in the region. The growing acceptance for goblins and monkey goblins in the Shackles has led to Ganda Uj and the Mediogalti monkey goblins having more and more interactions with the humans of Ilismagorti and Cuttle. Still, few humans have seen the majestic canopy city of Ganda Uj with their own eyes and live to tell of it, even to this day. The Thunderscale Warrens. In addition to monkey goblins, the jungles of Mediogalti teem with kobold tribes, with the largest among them being the Thunderscale tribe. The Thunderscale tribe calls the Thunderscale Warrens their home, a sprawling network of caves located less than a day's journey from Ilismagorti. These kobolds adorn their scales with vibrant plant dyes. Unlike some of the wilder deep jungle kobold tribes who vehemently oppose non-reptilian life, the Thunderscales occasionally engage in trade with the inhabitants of Ilismagorti. They also offer their services at relatively affordable rates as expert guides to the labyrinthine jungles, as they possess deep knowledge of the jungle terrain. The Thunderscale kobolds revere the dinosaurs of Mediogalti as divine beings, and many will make an annual pilgrimage southwest across the jungle to a vast dinosaur graveyard. When the island's hefty sauropods and genosaurs, see my megafauna video for more details on these, reach a certain age, they instinctively journey to this secluded spot deep in the island's interior to pass on to the next world. The Thunderscales revere this place, and are known to bring tributes of precious gemstones and gold to the dying dinosaurs, treasures that have remained unclaimed even by the Red Mantis cult, as the dinosaur bones stir to life when anyone approaches with ill intent in their heart. The Amberleg Crypt. Among the many concealed pirate crypts hidden in Mediogalti, one stands out, that of Angus Amberleg. This crypt serves the final resting place of the infamous dwarf pirate who left a wake of sunken and plundered vessels, including 2 Taldan corvettes and a Chelish galleon. Legends surrounding his treasure suggest it holds ancient artifacts and jewels of colossal size, some as large as an ogre's fist, but concealed deep in a heavily trapped stone crypt. Angus must have made some arrangement with Mediogalti's Iruxi natives as well, because the rumored location of the crypt lies deep in their territory. Larger and more ferocious than the kobolds and the monkey goblins, the Iruxi of Mediogalti are both territorial and quick to anger. Having shared their island now for almost 2 centuries with the Red Mantis cult, the Mediogalti Iruxi have also developed into more savage and more gifted warriors than almost any other in the Abendego Gulf territory. The Hermitage. South of Mediogalti is another smaller island referred to as the Hermitage. It is so named because of an eccentric hermit that makes his home on the island. Some speculate the old man who lives there has some connection to the Eye of Abendego, as he has been witnessed standing in the open, staring directly into the eye of the hurricane when storms spin off it and lash the island. Or he may simply be quite mad. The Gloom Spires. Located quite a ways south of the Hermitage are the Gloom Spires. These towering stone columns that rise from the ocean between the Shackles and Mediogalti Island predate even the Golgan Empire. For ages they remained shrouded in a magical fog that stubbornly resisted even the strongest winds. For Captain Sempit Sevenfingers, a powerful wizard pirate of the Shackles who died over 300 years ago, the infamous Gloomspires proved an excellent hiding spot for his ill-gotten wealth. From here, Sevenfingers launched raids in his ship, the Voracious, a black-hulled vessel said to have come from the nightmare realm of Leng, a place I discuss in more detail in my planar guide to the Demiplanes video. At first he used the existing halls and chambers of a specific spire only to hide his treasure, but as he approached the end of his life, he began renovating the spire to become his tomb. Today, many have sought out the tomb of Captain Sevenfingers among the Gloomspires, but the spires themselves are unnatural and defy mapping, measuring, or even approaching through conventional navigation. A palpable sense of wrongness saturates the Gloomspires. Shadows flicker and move in unnatural directions, strange sounds and unidentifiable scents tease the senses, and alternating sensations of claustrophobia and agoraphobia periodically assail visitors. Explorers here often describe a strange sensation where the pillars seem to quiver or even move in their peripheral vision. Sharkfin Island. Sharkfin Island lies just north of Ilismagorti, but it is not inhabited by pirates or the Red Mantis. The waters around this island are the domain of the Kaneano, the Adaro tribe that can also be spotted under the waters of the Ilismagorti Lagoon. They seldom interact with the region's land-based inhabitants, but many locals believe they have a special relationship with the Red Mantis cult, as they often act as protectors of Ilismagorti's waters, guarding against devilfish, reef claws, and other deep-sea predators. In secluded spots around the Mediogalti coastline, locals leave offerings for them as a sign of respect. The Kaneano possess an unparalleled knowledge of the reefs and islets encircling Mediogalti Island, surpassing even the most skilled human pilots and navigators. Captains here consider themselves fortunate if they manage to hire a Kaneano as a guide. There are also rumors suggesting that one can secure the services of a Kaneano shaman by presenting a rare kind of black pearl, though this might be hearsay. As it is elsewhere, the surface folk have little true understanding of the underwater denizens that they share their world with. Mosquito Island. Before the Red Mantis cult came to Mediogalti 150 years ago, Mosquito Island was once well known as the stronghold of the infamous pirate king Tyrax Bloodbones, and his powerful keep and stone fort can still be found here. However, these days the island has come fully under the control of the Red Mantis cult, who uses the island to train its novices. Non-members of the Red Mantis cult are unwelcome on the island, under pain of death. Slitherfish Island. The easternmost island of the Mediogalti archipelago is Slitherfish Island. The Red Mantis cult rarely makes use of this last island, and in fact, the most important site on this island is the wreck of the Merry Widow. The priesthood of Besmara consecrated this old beached galleon as a temple dedicated to their goddess. However, the priesthood here is unique, constituting a breakaway apostate sect from the most common forms of Besmaran worship, and is composed primarily of women who have lost their husbands at sea. The sect imparts the belief that the pirate queen herself has claimed their men, and as a result, they consider themselves blessed for the sacrifices they've endured. What power called all these widowed women from across the many ports of the inner sea region is not known, and indeed perhaps it is Besmara herself, but they have come here from places far and wide. The Jagged Reach and Fahalen Island. The Jagged Reach is a cluster of islands located at the southwestern end of Rahadum. Political maps will generally draw lines that incorporate the Jagged Reach into the nation of Rahadum, but in truth these islands are barely inhabited, and can be discussed just as well here with the rest of the Abendego Gulf territories. The most notable island in the Jagged Reach is Fahalen Island. On the southern shore of Fahalen Island, before the Oath Wars of Rahadum, there was a temple consecrated to Desna, and the lighthouse called the Guide Star. It served as a guiding light for ships navigating the Sand Coast Reach. The priests who maintained it were among the last religious figures in Rahadum to be exiled or executed for their beliefs. Secular forces took control of the lighthouse towards the end of the wars, but they all perished during a severe winter plague. However, the Guide Star has continued to function to this day, guiding ships traveling the treacherous waters around the Eye of Abendego. The reason for this is that the lighthouse has come to be occupied by the disembodied spirit of a dead dragon, the ghost of the bronze dragon Megara. More details on Megara and her relationship with the bronze dragon Rokir of Motaku Island can be found in my Dragon Creature feature. The Turbo Lords and the Sodden Lands. Since the fall of the nations of Lirgeni and Yamasan, this region has been dubbed the Sodden Lands. This lawless realm harbors predators of every description, ranging from boggards and crocodiles to aberrations and bands of survivalists. Yet amid the dangerous untamed wilderness, a lush beauty can be found here. towering ancient trees, a multitude of bird species, elusive fey creatures, and a diverse array of wildlife that have emerged and adapted to this environment. The swamps here exude an aura of primordial timelessness. Travelers passing through these lands are greeted by the gentle, ever-present patter of rain, the ceaseless hum of insects, and the harmonious songs of myriad birds and amphibians. As the land dwellers retreated, other cultures found their place within these wetlands. Boggart tribes, once confined to a few marshes, now lay claim to much of the northern lands. In the rest of the country, the new emergent power are the Turwa Lords, a coalition of Iruxi conquerors who have rapidly expanded their influence and territory since the collapse of the human nations by tooth and blade. Although each of the Turwa Lords operates as its own independent tribal state, there is a kind of unity among them, making the Sodden Lands a semi-united confederacy. Coordinating the general interests of the Turwa Lords stand the War Callers, a council of kings and spiritual leaders responsible for making intertribal decisions through consensus and necessity. Though they largely operate as a meritocracy with a strong emphasis on training potential successors, a critical voice among the War Callers is King Girzanje, a scarred warrior and seer, and the aged scarred seer has clung tenaciously to his leadership position long beyond the time other War Callers would have held this post. While his dual role as seer and warrior has bestowed upon him considerable political power, many among the War Callers openly harbor disdain for him. Girzanje, however, governs one of the largest and most powerful tribes in the Sodden Lands, and he claims to have received prophetic dreams that mandate the complete unification of all Iruxis in the Sodden Lands in order to avert impending disaster. For every Iruxi that worries the old king is slipping into madness, however, there are just as many that see him as a hero or savior, and possibly something even more. Still, despite Girzanji's influence and autocratic leaning, at the heart of Turwa Iruxi society lies a warrior meritocracy that places a significant emphasis on familial ties. When individuals from different villages come together for trade, their first priority is establishing family connections. They inquire about shared mentors or distant ancestors, and even distant cousins feel a sense of obligation to engage in dialogue and negotiations. Turwa culture strikes a delicate balance between honesty and acute political awareness. The Turwa Lords enthusiastically engage in politics, openly accumulating favors and working towards various objectives. While the Turwa Lords have a penchant for holding grudges, they do differentiate between various transgressions. Reconciliation with an honorable, long-standing political adversary is commonplace when mutual favors are exchanged and common ground is found. The death of a comrade in battle can be forgiven if the perpetrator expresses remorse and offers a suitable blood gift. However, falsehoods and deceit are typically deemed unforgivable, leading known deceivers to face either exile or death, as their trustworthiness can never be restored. In Turwa Iruxi culture, it is not just strength that is valued. Shamans and seers are not only trusted advisors, but also often serve as tribal leaders directly. Magical expertise is so valued that Turwa Lords will often allow non-Iruxi seers and astrologers free passage through their lands in exchange for magical teachings. Because the Turwa are a nomadic culture, most of their art comes in the form of jewelry, hidework, and other worn crafts. Some is merely decorative, while others signify different achievements. Most Turwa Iruxi wear a hatchstone, signifying the time of their birth. Triangle charms indicate battles won, while perfectly round gems indicate shamanistic training. Astrologers might wear shell buttons arrayed in constellations on their vests. The Turwa Iruxi also count bards among their tribes, who compose their own songs about the stars, their battles, and more esoteric fare that deal with themes of death, legacy, destiny, and the beauty of the heavens. As a river and coastal people, the boats crafted by the Turwa Iruxi can also be considered works of rare artistry, and this craft is passed down through the generations, and each boat is lovingly repaired and decorated by the entire tribe. As the Turwa Lords continue to gain power in this region, the remnants of the Lirgeni and Yamasan cultures are increasingly rare in the Sodden Lands, except for those stubborn few who cling to the hollow remnants of their old ruined cities. Hirantam. Hirantam was once the majestic capital of the astronomer kings of Lirgen, but it now operates as an independent city-state of mostly human and fey citizens amid the Iruxi lands. The philosopher-priests of the Sauk Brethren had once constructed a vast array of tower observatories that stretched skyward, bringing them ever closer to the mystical heavens from which they derived their power. When the Eye of Abendego formed at the onset of the Age of Lost Omens, the relentless rain caused the Frog-Marked River to overflow, submerging the city, save for a few low hilltops and the numerous tall towers that jutted out from the drink. Even today, the churning floodwaters have not receded, as they are continually fed by the region's torrential rainfalls. Now what were once the towers of the magnificent metropolis of Hirantam formed the majority of the ruins' unflooded reaches, and it is to them and the few areas of dry land that the city's survivors have fled. Over time, the harsh environs and steady encroachment of dangerous predators forced the surviving Lirgeni to consolidate to a relatively small enclave, located in what was once Hirantam's downtown region. This enclave stabilized for much of the past several decades at a population of just over 1,000. They were a tenacious band of scavengers and scroungers who cherished every day as proof of their triumph over their nation's terrible fate. The majority dwelt within the ruins of the old metropolis, with residents residing either on the elevated upper floors of stone towers or on floating hovels known as flotsams. Flotsams constructed from shipwrecks and driftwood remained tethered to boardwalks, piers, or moorings in the shallow waters surrounding the enclave. Historically, the community had two leaders, the harbour master and the keeper of legacy. The harbour master held the more practical leadership role within the enclave, encompassing responsibilities of harbour safety, upkeep, mayoral duties, and representation. The position demanded adaptability, as daily tasks were unpredictable. Harbour masters traditionally served for life, but required a support network of assistants and apprentices due to the unpredictable dangers of the storms and predators. When the settlement needed to appoint a new harbour master, the candidates participated in public debates, and locals cast their votes by placing specific shells into the large collapsed telescope located in the council building. The Keeper of Legacy is the figure most responsible for preserving the precious knowledge and rich history of Old Lirgen. They also preserve the lost secrets of Lirgeni astrological divination and are supposed to maintain a library in the High West Tower reserved for them at the Enclave. The previous holder of this position went by the lofty title of the Star Savior, but Hirantam's Star Savior departed under mysterious circumstances 5 years ago and has yet to return. Perhaps he has died. His tower and position have remained vacant ever since. Since his departure, the city faced an onslaught of monster attacks, orchestrated by a coven of hags eager to wrest control of the ancient city from the Lirgeni survivors. The details of these events are played out in the first edition Pathfinder module, Seers of the Drowned City. Some spoilers will follow. In the course of these events, a band of heroes helped the Enclave survive these attacks. With the aid of the heroes, the Lirgeni Enclave managed to endure this difficult period by forging alliances with a number of powerful non-human neighbors. This included Kaijong, a guardian brine dragon that had taken up residence in the old Hirantam lighthouse, Racina, a naga deeply devoted to the pursuit of knowledge, and Erisilla, a sea nymph whose close connection with the Fey realm would serve the city well in the coming years. These events proved a turning point for the city of Hirantam. The elected harbour master, a tough but fair man named Vanson, rose to prominence as the settlement's sole steward. He had once campaigned on attracting new trade to the Enclave, but for many years was preoccupied with other more immediate concerns, including infrastructure maintenance, defense against monster attacks, and ensuring the community's well-being. After the Star Savior's disappearance, and the alliance with the dragons, the Naga, and the Fae, Vanson could finally make good on his promise, and Hirantam entered a boom period. Whether this was connected to the Hags' Coven defeat or not is unclear, but only a few short months after the magic of the Hags had been disrupted, a rent in reality appeared in the Starview Lagoon. This portal has come to be known as Ing's Well, and it has proved to be a permanent open portal into a similarly turbulent coastline on the First World. Ing's Well differs from most other open rifts in the First World in a few ways. Firstly, it is over water, and secondly, it is quite a bit larger than most, large enough, in fact, to admit entire ships. Over the past 5 years, the open portal has ushered a deluge of Fey visitors and immigrants to the beleaguered city. Thus, Hirantam has been rebuilding rapidly, and the city is much changed from the survivalist state it was in at the end of First Edition. Into the rapidly growing Fey metropolis it is becoming in Second Edition. Aided by the magic of these new arrivals, it is thriving, but it is also grappling with an entirely fresh set of challenges as cultures collide and the surviving Lirgeni attempt to integrate the new arrivals. They welcome the aid, but they also worry about the erosion of what little of their culture remains to them. But these are relatively good problems. For the first time in a long time, Hirantam has working docks, and merchant ships plying the inland route from the islands of the Shackles to the Rahadumi port of Azir now occasionally dock here, rather than going around Mediogalti Island, bringing much-needed foreign trade to the city. Harbour Master Vanson continues to be the governor of Hirantam, but he must now weigh his authority against a number of influential figures, and some, like the brine dragon Kaijong, have a lot of metaphorical and non-metaphorical weight to throw around. The human people of Hirantam continue to try to find their own identity here. The devastation of their homeland left many in the city of Hirantam skeptical of religion, believing that the gods abandoned them in their time of need. As a result, many adopted a more humanistic approach to spirituality, with fey sorcery serving as a reasonable alternative to divine magic. One notable exception, though, are the clerics or druids of Gosrae, that continue to serve as the community's spiritual advisors. They have long been critical to this community, as they use their connection to the natural world to help the Enclave withstand the constant storms. The proximity to the Eye of Abendego means that Hirantam remains a very wet city. In fact, here clear skies are a rare cause for celebration, and festivals are reserved for the few mild days each year. These spontaneous celebrations require minimal preparation and typically involve practical undertakings benefiting the entire community, such as salvage expeditions or incorporating derelicts into the Enclave's infrastructure. I'm going to enumerate some of the points of interest in the city, but it's worth pointing out that Hirantam is a city that has changed dramatically between editions, transforming in only 5 years from a mostly human settlement of hardscrabble survivors to a richer, more vibrant settlement of mixed human and fey peoples. But the supporting content I have available still comes mostly from first edition. The map is therefore slightly out of date, and the significant points of interest may have changed slightly. Regardless, here we go. Frogmarch Ridge and the Lirgeni Enclave. The northern banks of the Frogmarch survive today as a series of low, swampy islands that support dozens of towers. The islands consist of thick layers of silt and mud deposited here over the decades, burying many lower structures forever. Before the portal known as Ing's Well opened up, the entire population of Hirantam pretty much resided in this cluster of tall towers. The population has since expanded as more of the city has been reclaimed, but this central location is likely still the heart of New Hirantam. Within the Enclave, important structures among the central towers included the Harbour Master's Tower, which served many functions as both Harbour Master's home, official place of work, and even as a semi-functional inn for the few travellers who came through. The Enclave Beacon, a towering lighthouse that stood 80 feet higher than anything else and now serves as the roost of Kaijon the Brine Dragon. Fort Frogmarch, a fortified building used to store food and repair supplies. The Hunter's Lodge, where hunters could gather between forays into the wilds for food, or to prepare their kills, swap tales and advice, and repair their tools and traps. The Market Tower, a double set of towers linked by so many walkways they formed a single structure. Within, several of the harbour master's apprentices served as smiths, tailors, cobblers, shipwrights, carpenters, and other service providers. The Fisher's Watch, serving both as a place for processing the day's catch and a dry dock for building and repairing boats. The Temple of Gosrae, the only prominent place of divine worship on the island. Here, the High Priest Mparu has long served as the community's chief spiritual advisor. The Old Council Building. This was once the largest observatory in central Hirantam, and it is here that the town holds elections and other civic functions. And finally, the Star Saviour's Retreat, a long tower in the western edge of the Enclave that was set aside for the Star Saviour. What has been done with the place since the Star Saviour has not been seen in 5 years is not known, but it is a treasure trove of old books kept in waterproof containers, as the Saviour here once sought to keep the old history of Lirgen alive in this tower. The Watcher's Way and Aphelion Manor. Located south of the Enclave, Aphelion Manor once stood amid beautifully sculpted gardens called the Watcher's Way. It was home to the Guzas, a pair of married oracles of high standing within the Sauk Brethren. When Hirantam flooded, the couple remained behind as their people fled, so they could attempt to extract meaning from the catastrophe. Their reckless divinations irreparably damaged them, and in their anguish they ended their own lives in ritual suicide. Not all of the gardens nor the manor were completely destroyed in the flooding, and it's possible that the people of Hirantam have been able to rebuild their storied manor home. Old Hirantam and Parallax University. Before the flood, the region now referred to as Old Hirantam comprised various districts that catered to diverse communities, including artists, naturalists, priests, spellcasters, university students, and scholars. These districts show the worst evidence of Hirantam's devastation. Among the submerged remnants, undead threats frequently haunt these flooded streets. Notably, a significant cluster of towers stand tall above the water's surface. Parallax University, the crown jewel of scholarly endeavors in Hirantam. It served as the repository for a multitude of vital records, encompassing the nation's history, astrological prophecies, and scientific breakthroughs. Due to its pivotal role in preserving Lirgen's heritage, the Sauk Brethren spared no expense in safeguarding its library through the use of formidable magical wards and traps. Even during the calamitous flooding, the library remained impervious to harm, thanks to its robust construction and the magically reinforced windows designed to protect the city's invaluable archives. Parallax University was only recovered by the Enclave 5 years ago, and today the curator of the archives is the lunar Naga Racina, who is still sorting through all the lost lore there. She does not allow the books to leave the library, but she is receptive to small classes reopening there. The Sauk Planetarium. This flooded structure once served as a public forum, performance hall, and place of worship for the old city's inhabitants. The planetarium's two intact spires once offered a commanding view of the Patriarch district, but the rest of the building lies underwater. At low tide, the uppermost domes protrude above water, but during these storms, the entire structure remains submerged. Today, most of the submerged planetarium remains firmly in the hands of the Ulat Kini occupants, which, despite the boom years, the Enclave has not been able to displace. The Seer's Summit and the Augur's Throne. Once Hirantem's highest hill, Seer's Summit served as a seat of the city's government before the Age of Lost Omens. Here, the keep known as the Augur's Throne once served as a court for the Sauk Brethren, where members would hear grievances, pleas, and trials from the Hirantem locals. The Brethren held audience in the throne room on the ground floor, then sought counsel from astrological divinations, recorded prophecies, and conjured outsiders before returning to pass down edicts and verdicts to the populace. When the storm came and Lirgen fell, the Augur's throne partially collapsed. Today, only its southernmost tower still stands, once the shortest of the 9 towers that made up the great building. Sauk's Landing. The first area to be settled by Lirgen's founder, Sauk's Landing functioned as Hirantem's original harbour and formed the oldest part of the city. Much of this region lies underwater, and its largest swampy island barely stands a few feet above the water at high tide. Starview Lagoon. What once comprised Hirantem's primary harbour was formerly surrounded by a sprawling marketplace that catered to Lirgen's aristocracy. Because of the district's wealth, these submerged buildings initially offered the best scavenging grounds in Hirantem, but the efforts of countless adventurers and treasure seekers have scoured the area relatively clear. Today, however, Starview Lagoon is most notable for being the entrance to the Well of Ing, which allows admittance directly to the First World. Naiads, Oceaniads, and other water-based fey creatures routinely traverse to and fro, connecting the new city of Hirantem to a whole world of trade on the other side. In the Hirantem of today, one can frequently see eccentric gnomes occasionally driving full sailing ships right through to the other side. Kokutang. After Hirantem, the second largest city to be found among the kingdoms that were, is the former Yamasan capital of Kokutang. Unfortunately for the Yamasans, Kokutang was never able to recover in the way that Hirantem or Jula were able to, and today it could be considered more of a surviving fortress than a real city. However, it too is not deserted. It maintains a small permanent population that seek to hold independence from the Turwa lords and other would-be conquerors who value the city for its historic importance. These survivors drained Kokutang's famed system of cisterns and converted them into waterproof subterranean dwellings, connected by underground passages. Most notably, the population of Kokutang swells seasonally. In the dry season, the terrain becomes less treacherous, and the ancient city of Kokutang becomes a sacred place and shrine for Yamasan survivors. Many Yamasans living in the Turwa uplands, in the shackles, among the Matanji orcs, or even as far east as Jaha, make the hard pilgrimage to Kokutang each year if they are able to. The Yamasans remain closed-mouthed about why they risk so much to return to the ruins of their city each year. Rumors explaining their pilgrimage range from communing with the spirits of their ancestors to searching for a lost relic they believe can rebuild their nation. Jula. Jula was the third largest city in the kingdoms that were. Though not Yamasa's capital, Jula nonetheless served as a vital waypoint, connecting the nation of Yamasa to the shackles, and this caused it to grow and flourish. Travelers passing through found respite in the tranquil pool created by the convergence of the Green Flow and Blue Flow rivers. According to legend, the first Yamasan settlers constructed Jula at this site due to the presence of a majestic ibex here with gleaming bronze horns, an animal closely associated with holy Erastil. In this story, the ibex was said to have violently perished while defending an Erastilian priest, who, in gratitude, constructed the Hall of the Watchful Ibex atop the waterfall pool to honor the creature's sacrifice. Over time, its convenient location along the Sandcoast Reach and its lush valleys caused the city to flourish with homes and farms, transforming Jula into a thriving center of prosperity. Then the death of prophecy and the calamity of the Eye of Abendego. The sea surged in, engulfing Jula's low-lying districts. The once vibrant valleys became submerged trenches, and the thriving communities turned into tombs for the drowned. The survivors of Jula were those whose homes perched on the cliff tops, and they labored tirelessly to mend their fractured city. Although initially less damaged than both Kokutang and Hirantem to the north, things turned out for the worst for the Julans, when, within a few months of the first great storms, an enormous Elasmosaurus came to Jula's Bay. This fearsome creature wreaked havoc in the city, crushing the few docks and boats the residents had painstakingly reconstructed. In a desperate bid to defend their city, the townsfolk converted a damaged beam from the roof of the Jula alehouse into a makeshift harpoon, which they plunged down a repair gantry into the creature's skull. Following their victory, they feasted on Elasmosaurus steaks and preserved its skeleton, known as the Obeondo coil, symbolizing Jula's newfound resilience and unyielding spirit. Yet, despite being the best preserved of the once great cities of Lirgeni and Yamasan, life remained far from easy for the Julans. In 4661, 4 Chellish ships decided Jula would serve well as a staging ground in their continued bid to pacify the Shackles and reclaim their lost colony of Sargava further south. The Julans rallied around the Hall of the Watchful Ibex, enduring a 3-day siege, which they might well have lost were it not for the timely intervention of a travelling troop of bards that came to the city's aid. The epic battle became known as the Devil's Gifts, as the spoils from the Chellish ships brought about a vital economic revitalization. The halfling bard troop that came to the town's aid also decided to settle there permanently. For a while it seemed the town's fortunes had come around, but then in 4703 another force set its eyes on the town. A group of brigands infiltrated the town during a fierce storm, and before the night was over they had rounded up local leaders and coerced the entire town into submission. Their gang leader, Ajbal Kimon, is a cruel but intelligent opportunist, using the chaos in the Sodden Lands and the collapse of the old nations that once had been to acquire wealth through looting and robbery. His loyal warriors had taken to calling themselves the Knights of Abendego, and now, thanks to a skilled blacksmith among the townsfolk, they all wear easily identifiable suits of scale armor, patterned after a sea creature. Self-styling themselves as heroes bringing order back to the broken kingdoms, in truth, the Knights of Abendego are even worse than just a faction of opportunistic conquerors. They are also a religious cult, dedicated to Lord Blackfingers, the god Norgorber's aspect as the Lord of Thieves. They view theft and conquest not just as a way of life, but also as an act of religious devotion. Ajbal Kimon has since made himself the governor of Jula, with the Knights of Abendego serving as the cruel enforcers of his will. The knights appropriate the finest crops and goods and compel the forged to operate incessantly to arm them. The town's resilient leaders believed that a community that had weathered so much adversity could overcome this as well. And though there have been recent murmurs of a potential uprising, it remains to be seen whether Governor Ajbal and the Knights of Abendego will join the Obeondo coil and the Chellish fleet masts as symbols of the town's enduring success against all odds. Apart from Ajbal Kimon, there are a few other notable figures in town. The leader of the village watch is a man named 8 Briar Sunsets, and he has tried to juggle the fair application of his duties with the harsh oversight from the Knights of Abendego. Father Heveril de Gambi serves as the High Priest of Erastil at the Hall of the Watchful Ibex. Prior to Ajbal's arrival, the spiritual leader also served as the de facto governor to the loosely organized town. Today he is the voice of the citizens, bravely trying to curtail the worst of the impulses of the Knights of Abendego. He walks a tightrope, advocating for his constituents while being careful not to anger the occupiers enough to put his own life in danger. Heveril is an older man now, but he was trained in his position by his mother Iboda, who held the position of high priest before him. He was only a young man when the Chellish laid siege to Jula. His mother passed away in the struggle. As we can see, Heveril is no stranger to hardship, yet each day is a battle for him, as he struggles to overcome his self-doubts and the pervasive melancholy that plagues him. He has managed to fulfill his priestly duties, albeit with great effort, but his attempts to get his people out from under the thumb of the knights have so far yielded no progress. Points of interest in Jula include the rivers. The green flow pours into Jula from the north, splitting around a small island before crashing into the bay below. The blue flow flows in from the east and also contains a small fall, at the base of which shimmering daredevil fish can be seen darting in and out of the water. These two rivers split the town into its 3 major regions. West of the green flow lies the Claw. Wedged between the 2 rivers lie the granaries, and south side of the blue flow lies the district of Traders' Landing. The Claw. This spit of land is named for its shape. The northern slope of the Claw conceals a small cave mouth, visible only during the lowest tide. This cave leads to a series of tunnels that wind below the city and allow the discreet delivery of goods to the town. Thus it is now called Smuggler's Cove by those who are aware of it. South of Smuggler's Cove lies a steep cliff top with a lookout tower on it. The preserved skeleton of a massive Elasmosaurus winds up and around the tower, and thus the tower is called Obeondo's Coil. The mighty aquatic dinosaur skull is level with the top of the monument, so one can look through it at the top to stare defiantly towards the great perpetual storm of the Abendego. The tower overlooks Larderside, the Claw's southeast bank, where most of Jula's nautical activities, such as fish processing and net repair, happen. Larderside's inhabitants shelter beneath the wide eaves of incongruously elaborate, centuries-old buildings, testaments to the great wealth of Yamasa in the long-forgotten past. One final notable location in Larderside is the Jula Alehouse. The High Hearth family has run the Jula Alehouse for centuries, and in the days of old Yamasa, this large and well-reputed inn and tavern was a sight to behold. Today, most of the elegant stained glass windows have been replaced with wooden panels after sustaining damage during storms. A stocky woman named Imara Highhearth is the latest Highhearth to operate the Jula Alehouse. Though Imara has taken the Highhearth family name from her mother's side, she is in fact only Yamasan on that side. Her father, Agarius, was actually a Chelish defector from the siege 60 years ago. The granaries. Before the storm, the highland road passing through Jula was a bustling thoroughfare, frequently traveled by grain-laden caravans from northern Yamasa. Today, the towering grain silos have been repurposed to accommodate families. These families have transformed the former merchant offices and counting houses into their shops and studios, slowly breathing new life into the northern portion of Jula. In addition to the commercial stores, the granaries district include two critical structures in the town: the Hall of the Watchful Ibex, the large temple of Erastil around which the town was originally founded, and the Wheelwright's Widower, which was originally a large inn, but which has been repurposed as the seat of authority for Ajbal Kimon and his Abendego knights. Traders' Landing. Once a crucial trade center for Jula, Traders' Landing is ironically Jula's least affluent neighborhood today. It is connected to the granaries via the Blue Span Bridge, but access to the Claw typically requires taking a dinghy. The Steeltail Forge is located here, and it has been forced by the Abendego Knights to crank out numerous suits of scale mail and a host of weapons. These skilled blacksmiths once brought significant renown to the city, but now what remains of the Steeltail family, Zahara and Okoyo, plus their children Zoribzi and Maloril, find themselves squarely under the thumb of the Abendego Knights. Still, rumors persist that they have been secreting weapons in the basements below the smithy in case of a potential uprising. A final point of interest is hidden among the warehouses of Traders' Landing, the Third River headquarters. The Third River are a thieves' guild, and the most significant organization in town operating actively against the occupying knights. Grinning Lex is the current leader of the Third River, an unlikely hero known for their colorful language and shark-toothed grin. Their previous leader was only recently executed by Ajbal and his knights, so Grinning Lex is already actively plotting a reprisal. In addition to the three major cities of the Sodden Lands, there are a few other significant points of interest. Fliptown. Sometime after Ingswell opened near Hirantam, a Gripply adventurer named Flip the Lucky and his crew came to Hirantam on a modest skiff. Seeking adventure, he entered the Fey Realm, through the well, and emerged a year later, with a wondrous barge that defied gravity and floated gracefully above the water's surface. Renaming this magical vessel Fliptown, the barge transformed into a mobile Gripply village. Now unofficially recognized the Sodden Lands' secret fourth city, Fliptown has become an opulent riverboat casino that has attracted daring high-stakes gamblers from diverse realms, including the First World, the Plane of Water, and other exotic locales. These audacious gamblers aren't merely interested in wagering coins. They seek to bet their favors, unlock magical secrets, and uncover hidden truths. Fliptown doesn't have a fixed location, but it runs the length of the Sodden Lands coast, sometimes drifting as far south as the Mbeke dwarf port of Clareng or the eastern Shacklemost settlement of Greenblood, and other times drifting as far north as Fahalan Isle or even the Merry Widow. They keep to the banks of the storm, however, as Flip's Gripply crew actually favors the wet. Flip holds a deep disdain for cheaters and those who renege on bets. Any individuals caught engaging in such nefarious activities are cursed with a distinctive mark, a luminous brand on their foreheads, though it mercifully only revealed itself within a mile of the floating barge city. Fangspire. A good deal changed very quickly in western Garund when the Great Storm opened. Before this event, Lirgen and Rahadum had become vital trade partners. They are ethnically the same people after all and have a long shared history. Many Rahadumi had family in Lirgen and vice versa. The Rahadumi city of Haldun had long sat at the crossroads between the two nations at the only viable pass between the Napsoon Mountains, and its gates were always open, as caravan traffic was almost continuous. At the cataclysmic opening of the Eye of Abendego, many Rahadumi people lost relatives in the disaster. A secular Rahadumi order known as the Knights of Salvation emerged in the aftermath, dedicating themselves to the noble mission of rescuing refugees trapped in the turmoil. To navigate the treacherous hurricanes and reach the survivors, these knights constructed a network of interconnected way stations. When their resources allowed, the knights employed enduring magical means to construct these stations. resorting to elevated stone bunkers when faced with limited funding and dwindling magical supplies. Each station meticulously linked to the next through ropes or chains. By grasping the chain and tracing its path, a refugee could traverse the blinding storms, or knights could transport essential supplies or crucial information to the subsequent station deeper within the tempest. In this way, the knights were able to get a great many of the northern Lirgeni out of the country and safely to Rahadum. After nearly 3 decades of unwavering service, the northern Lirgeni had all either been evacuated or had died. The order disbanded, but many of their resilient shelters still stand today. However, in the absence of the knights, the boggards that rapidly multiplied across the North Sodden Lands converted these shelters into vast lairs for themselves. One fortress in particular, now called the Fang Spire, was magically wrought to survive the tempest, and it has defied the ravages of time, though the ground beneath it has not been as fortunate. The collapsing shoreline means the tower now sticks out, and it leans at an angle, pointing out ominously towards the storm. Although in most parts of the world, boggards generally worship Gogunta, the mother of boggards, a deity I discuss in more detail in my Demon Lord's Religion video, many of the Sodden Land tribes view the ceaseless turmoil of the Eye of Abendego as having come from deep within the earth, a divine blessing from Rovagug. These tribes, who have taken Rovagug as their patron, have become more violent and cruel than the rest of their kindred. Fangspire serves as the home of the chief of one of the largest, best organized, but also most violent Rovagug-worshipping boggart tribes in the Sodden Lands. The Fangspire chief proudly proclaims some kind of fiendish heritage, though whether rooted in truth or wishful imagining is unknown. A unity across their kindred could potentially make boggards a much more powerful force in the region, but thankfully the Fangspire tribe is the only one showing this level of organization. Among the rest of their kind, incessant raiding and internal discord have hindered such consolidation. Owagon. Situated at the mouth of the formidable Blackflow, the flooded remnants of the Lirgeni city of Owagon has been the target of a few brave explorers and treasure hunters. This city was once a thriving center in the land of Lirgen. While its skyline didn't feature the striking towers of Hirantam's, the merchant houses of Owagon were famous for building perfectly sculpted parks and architectural works of art. It was renowned for its legendary magical vaults, once overseen by the illustrious 100 Halberd Consortium, a merchant company that specialized in enchanted weapons and armor. In order to explore the submerged streets of Owagon, some of these treasure hunters and tomb raiders made use of the diving bells, which had been constructed by the Knights of Salvation to rescue Lirgeni survivors, who had endured in the depths in magically waterproofed vaults. Others have made use of magic that enabled water breathing, a better solution perhaps, as the bells have suffered considerable wear and tear in the last 70 years. Few adventurers have returned to Owagon in recent years, however, as the latest reports to surface have suggested the ruins of Owagon have become the home of aquatic creatures with slender bodies and long tails, possibly some breed of Adaro, Ulatkini, or Sahagin. The reports are unclear exactly. Either way, few who have come here now have ever returned, and the vaults of the 100 Halberd Consortium may remain forever unplundered as Owagon's new masters enforce their control over the city. Wetan. Wetan was a smaller Lirgeni city than both Hirantam and Owagon, and like Owagon it sank into the waters at the outbreak of the storm when the entire western coastline upon which it stood sank beneath the waves. The collapse was so sudden, and across such a large area, that the city remained surprisingly preserved, though its people were all slain overnight. In Wetan, the Knights of Salvation saw there was no point in assembling diving bells or mounting rescues, and the city lacked the same valuable resources to prompt treasure hunters to explore it more fully. Instead, it came to be the home of a tribe of aquatic Lokatha. Traditionally a more naturally peaceful Piscean species than the Sahagin or the Ulatkini, the Lokatha used to welcome other friendly aquatic races into their new home, such as merfolk and Azarketi. But more recently they have become unusually xenophobic. The reasons for this are twofold. First, the tribe's elder mystics uncovered a magical gate hidden in the city in recent years, a series of stamped copper plates with symbols etched on them. Deciphering the code, the Lokatha mystics were able to slightly open the ancient gate and confer with the entities on the other side. Whatever they have learned has altered them, and they are now much more protective of the city. The second cause of their shift in attitude towards outsiders is extrinsic to the city, and it concerns a spawn of Rovagug named Urtetlar, the Tempest Queen. This writhing horror is a mass of tentacles, like a great kraken, but the figure of a humanoid woman emerges from the monster's center, its fiendish visage far from welcoming. The Dark Elves of Sekamina tell legends of how Urtetlar came crawling from the depths of the dying sea to prey upon their coastal settlements, and scholars among the Dark Elves hypothesize that this creature may have originated from somewhere in the sightless sea of Orv. As she found her way to the surface of the world, she discovered the Eye of Abendego, and she saw the storm as a manifestation of the rough beast's destructive power. Since making the Abendego Gulf her home, Tetlar has gathered numerous aquatic servants. Ulat Kini in the deeps and boggards along the shores of the Sodden Lands are her most common. Tetlar has somehow become aware of the Gate of Wetan, and that the Lokatha have managed to partially activate it. Eager to acquire some undisclosed dark power, Tetlar has sent waves of Ulakini raiders to assault the underwater city. The Great Spawn is not beneath using subterfuge either to learn more about the Wetan Gate, so not surprisingly, the Lokatha of Wetan have become increasingly paranoid and defensive. The Frog March villages. Upriver from the port of Hirantam, the Frog March is dotted with numerous boggard villages. Boggard tribes are a common sight throughout the Sodden Lands. They have multiplied quickly since the Eye of Abendego opened, and the wet, boggy terrain here is ideally suited to them. In the north of the Sodden Lands, the Boggard tribes, in fact, challenge the Turwa lords for overall dominance. Even at the best of times, these amphibious denizens harbor a deep-seated mistrust of outsiders, often resorting to aggression rather than negotiation when encountering adventurers. Although most Boggard villages dislike treating with outsiders, there are a few rare exceptions, and the most notable of these is Cudlow's village. The modest Boggard village is noteworthy as the location of Cudlow's Concoctions, a well-stocked alchemical shop run by a rotund Boggard alchemist, the eponymous Cudslow. He presides over a sprawling alchemical emporium, situated halfway between the bustling hub of Hirantam and the more expansive Boggard domain upriver. Some travellers have dismissed it as another haphazard assortment of Boggard mud huts, precariously leaning on one another. However, those who venture inside discover a surprisingly organized workshop, brimming with an array of poisons, elixirs, and intriguing alchemical novelties. As an information broker of sorts, Cudslow also has a penchant for valuable rumors and intelligence regarding the various factions within the Sodden Lands, and he's been known to reward those adventurers who provide him with such. The Steel Maradoth. The first Corsair Wars between the Pirates of the Shackles and the Mbeke dwarves ran from 4607 to 4611, and in the course of this conflict, the Mbeke, with their mastery of smithing, developed the ironclad vessels. Although far tougher and more powerfully armed than Shackles vessels, one thing the ironclads did not do particularly well was weather powerful storms. In the late years of the war, the Eye of Abendego had a particularly violent surge year, and a number of ironclads were smashed together. These smashed metal hulks were pushed hundreds of miles up the coastline to where they come to rest today, along with the detritus of many other wrecked wooden rigs, into a great ragged heap at the tip of a muddy peninsula in the Sodden Lands. Because the large iron hulks were so defensible, a gang of scavengers seized on this pile of ruined rigs, naming it the Steel Maradoth, their headquarters. This group, called the Possum Gang, is a significantly smaller operation than the Knights of Abendego who occupy Jula, but are of similar ilk. The Temple of the Sunken Sign. Among the drowned swamps and jungles here sits a ruined ziggurat that had been constructed by the ancient Golgan after their fall to decadence. Along this ancient Golgan ziggurat, a much newer tower could also be found, stretching heavenward from the dense, rain-soaked foliage. Constructed by an outcast band of the Sauk brethren called the Eight Stars, who stumbled upon this mist-choked valley and saw in the ancient Golgan ruins clues pointing to a dark deity that lived in the stars, they built this new tower and consecrated it to him. The members of this mad, forgotten sect still dwell in the Temple of the Sunken Sign and point their telescopes towards the stars, working their corrupt rites and waiting for the chance to become one in madness with their fell patron. Cult leader Mamiost Vermal of the Followers of the Sunken Sign spends most of his time in the High Tower, directing the rest of his mad cult. Vermal is a wizened original member of the group of Sauk brethren who discovered the temple before the death of Aradin. His madness and longevity are both enhanced through contact with the phantom of an ancient cyclops named Hrut Bia. Hrut Bia lived during the twilight years of the Golgan Empire and engaged in the same dark worship that grips Vermal now. Vermal and his cult are further protected from interference by a tribe of Boggards and a marsh giant witch. The Boggards are led by a wizard necromancer named Thruga, who actually poses a fairly serious threat to explorers, while the marsh giant Gweeg, who was once a valued ally to the cult, now spends most of her days in her nest, entranced by the hallucinogenic effects of the mushrooms she grows in her garden. Xanthune. Located somewhere between Jula and Kokutang is another Golgan structure. The precise whereabouts of the submerged complex of Xanthune are unclear, but it is said to house the legendary treasure hoard of Amelon VI, the final monarch of the Golgan. Among the fortunate few who emerged from the structure's depths and lived to tell of it, one name stands out. Pathfinder Escobar Velayan. According to Pathfinder Society accounts, he battled his way past a legion of submerged zombies to secure his escape. Xanthune is also said to have been plundered by the notorious Hellblood Corsairs. Their leader, Belia of Zadoth, is a curious creature, a haunted one, a mortal that shares their body with another soul, typically a discorporated undead one. Belia was odd from the start, the product of a virgin birth that caused her mother's death, and a cult soon sprang up around her. As she grew, the strange voice in her head, an entity named Zadoth, gave Belia the abilities of a powerful oracle. Belia now has the loyalties of a crew and operates from a three-masted Andorran frigate called the Hellblood. Her most valued allies are the barbarian sorcerer Molatunde Navoon, the ex-Red Mantis Shavaran, and the former Eagle Knight Osrin Kazo. It's not clear why the spirit called Zadoth guided her to Xanthune, nor what the Hellblood Corsairs might have recovered there. The Matanji Orcs and the fortress settlements of the Nine Walls. The Matanji Orcs are the indigenous orc ethnic group of the Mwangi Expanse. They are recognized as skilled warriors, though this reputation is primarily rooted in their unwavering determination to combat a specific adversary, demons, particularly those who serve Angazan, the ravenous king. After centuries of relentless conflict with these forces, they have developed a remarkable resistance to possession and demonic influence. Their prowess in battling fiendish forces is so adept that some among their kind have learned to harness and consume demonic magic to empower themselves. Thanks to Matanji orcs' hardy constitutions, small doses of fiend blood have little effect on them beyond temporarily boosting their strength and awareness, a condition they commonly call the demon blood frenzy. Yet certain types of demonic material can be quite addictive. Those who consume this kind of material too frequently tend to carry vials of fiend blood on them at all times, or chew on demon bones to avoid withdrawal. It's important to note that the Matanji and Garund hold a very different cultural reputation from the Belks and Orcs of Avestan. They have not historically engaged in conflicts with the neighboring human societies, and in fact the reverse is true. Their presence rather instills a sense of security among Zenj, Bonawat, and Maxi humans, and among the various types of Mualajae elves. Only among the xenophobic Bekyar humans are the Matanji mistrusted. With that one exception, the orcs here are well integrated into human and elven societies. As a people and as a nation, they actively participate in regional politics, such as seeking to influence broad-ranging military strategy across polities, and may even arrange political marriages, as is common among humans. Of all the humans, they share the closest relationship with the Yamasans, and they took in the largest number of Yamasan refugees when their country was destroyed. The Yamasans play a crucial role within Matanji society today, with their great reputation as agricultural experts contributing significantly to the increased productivity of Matanji farms and ranches. In Matanji settlements, in fact, it is Yamasan migrants that typically lead farming endeavors, overseeing collaborative efforts that include both orc and human farmhands. While the Yamasan people maintain their distinct identity and do not hold formal positions in the Matanji society, the Matanji Council does regularly seek their counsel on all matters pertaining to agriculture. Matanji parents have, for the last 100 or so years since the Age of Lost Omens began, instilled in their children a deep respect for and a commitment to safeguarding the Yamasans, recognizing them as indispensable to the Matanji state. The large Yamasan diaspora living among the Matanji villages and assisting with the operations of the farms and ranches means that half-orcs are so common here that they have their own name, the Witanji. These mixed children tend to be born not as physically strong as their full-blood orc parents, but they possess the same innate intuitive grasp that many humans are blessed with. As such, they are encouraged to study magic, medicine, politics, and science. Witanji half-orcs thus often serve roles as educators, advisors, healers, wizards, and therefore contribute significantly to the wealth and prosperity of a village. As one might imagine, such half-orcs have a clear sense of purpose and belonging, and therefore half-orcs of this background tend to not experience the complex social issues that are common among half-orcs in other parts of the world. The Matanji territory, which could be thought of as an independent nation, is commonly referred to throughout the Mwangi Expanse as the Nine Walls. The Nine Walls lie between the border with the Sodden Lands in the northwest and Lake Okota in the southeast. The Nine Walls are so because of 9 defensive layers that collectively form a protective perimeter around the Matanji capital of Matakali. The layers are fully walled in some parts, but in other parts they may make use of natural geographic features, such as rivers, tree lines, and crags. The ancestral Matanji enemies from Uzaro are relentless, however, so these barriers are strategically fortified with orc squads, magical traps, and protective wards. Additional settlements representing the other large Matanji villages lie along each of the walls beyond the first. making 8 additional significant settlements and 9 in total, including the capital. The entire fortified nation is only about 50 miles across, and the orcs and their Yamasan allies keep well-maintained trails through the jungle, so it only takes a day to get from the outer walls to the capital by horse or warcat. The Matanji are governed by the Matakali Council, consisting of individuals who have demonstrated exceptional prowess in demon hunting or diplomacy and are universally esteemed for their high honor. In the event of a leader's passing, those with the most extensive experience engage in a voting process to determine the successor who will assume a position on the council. The council primarily focuses on making critical decisions regarding the protection of their people and the Mwangi Expanse as a whole, while also overseeing the governance of the Matanji society. Although there are no Yamasan humans on the council, there are a number of Witanji half-orcs, many of whom have the interests of the Yamasan diaspora at heart. Many of the council members are also considered to be a part of the Matanji aristocracy. This is not an aristocracy as we might think of it in human societies, but rather lineages of orcs that contain a large number of particularly notable demon hunters. Thus, since the aristocracy is tied to war record, the fortunes and influence of these lineages may change substantially over time. However, the children of Matanji aristocrats are given the best martial training, as well as the best weapons and armor, so even in this society, power tends to beget power. The Matanji worship a range of deities, but the most prominent is Kazutal, whom they call Majagwa, the mother of jaguars. They are thankful to Majagwa for her aid in educating them about hunting and surviving early in their history. Though she is a deity whose influence is mainly contained in the continent of Arcadia, the Matanji are a rare exception to this. Matanji orcs believe that the health of their society matters most, and so worship of Majagwa as a patron of community, liberty, and safety has saturated a good deal of their lives. As agricultural people, the Yamasans most frequently worship Erastil. Temples and shrines of both Majagwa and Erastil are therefore common throughout the Nine Walls, though worship of other deities can be found throughout the territory as well, as many diverse peoples are welcome to visit the Matanji lands. Important locations in the Nine Walls. Matakali. The Rain Orc capital is Matakali, the central city within the Nine Walls, boasting a reputation as one of the safest havens in the Mwangi region. Matakali functions as the focal point of Matanji politics, housing affluent residents and high-ranking officials. While all Matanji individuals have the privilege of visiting Matakali, outsiders require a personal invitation from a prominent figure, though visiting ambassadors are expected to bring along their supporting staff. Such individuals may not require such invitations, but the Matakali guards are good at sniffing out individuals who are trying to get in under false pretenses. The city boasts a diverse cross-section of orcs, from warriors to artisans to merchants, and also a substantial number of veterans who can no longer actively participate in combat. They contribute now by serving on the council and helping the nation make critical decisions. For orcs with a long war record, it's not uncommon for them to exhibit unusual physical characteristics due to their extensive exposure to demonic power in their years of service. The social epicenter of Matakali is the Demon Bane Manor. Here it's not unusual to witness veterans engaged in animated debates, or expressing concerns about various political issues, or younger orc aristocrats voicing their discontent over the scarcity of suitable marriage prospects. In the upper levels of the building, council members can be seen traversing the space with an air of restlessness, or engaged in meetings on various state matters. It's not uncommon for them to engage with visiting outsiders here, and the Demon Bane Manor has all the requisite facilities to host foreign ambassadors and diplomats, along with their entourages. In the lower levels, the manor serves as the backdrop for various stages of courtship, with orcs inquiring about one's background, status, finances, culture, and interests. They make no effort to conceal their keen interest in the subject of courtship, a fact that often catches unprepared outsiders off guard. For those looking for a tryst, the central lounge is a great place to meet restless young orcs, who can often be seen sipping rum, often clad in minimal clothing or draped in exotic animal skins. Yamonji. This is the closest settlement to Matakali, and occupies all the spaces between the 8th and 9th wall. Rather than being a city, or centered around a fortress like the other major settlements, Yamonji is actually an expansive agricultural settlement. This is where the majority of the Yamasan diaspora can be found. Colorful bazaars dot the landscape, while the actual residents consist mainly of simple log cabins adorned with protective demon wards. Vast dirt pathways facilitate easy movement between the walls, bazaar, and the humble log cabin homes. One can often observe scores of novice orc soldiers working alongside Yamasan farmers in the fields. The bazaars offer a wide array of goods, ranging from basic butchered meats to magical herbal concoctions used in demonic exorcisms. From time to time, a substantial caravan arrives or departs from Yamonji, transporting supplies to the other 9 walls and engaging in trade with the broader Mwangi region. Witanli. The fortress city of Witanli is situated on the 6th wall, 3 walls down from the capital. It sets itself apart from the other settlements along the 9 walls because it is populated almost entirely by Witanji half-orcs. Notably, Witanli is renowned for its scholarly pursuits, often serving as a hub for scientific advancement and being the only settlement with an emphasis on the arts. Functioning effectively as a university town, living alone is rare here, and a large manor may host dozens of unrelated half-orcs living together. While there is a reduced emphasis on demons and demon hunting in this settlement, they still dedicate their time and resources to research in these areas. The biggest institution for learning in Witanli is the Rainkin Academy, a sprawling campus extending over at least a mile, featuring multiple large manors specializing in related fields of study. Originally named the Academy of Ruxaw the Decapitator in his memory, the name was altered when Witanli became a predominantly half-orc settlement. Nevertheless, some continue to affectionately refer to the academy as Ruxaw, even generations later. The presence of Matanji parents is frequent, but not always welcome, as Matanji parents view the scholastic pursuits of their half-orc children in the same way they view the martial training of their full-blood orc children, expecting them to excel. The half-orcs of the Rainkin acutely feel this constant pressure to meet these high expectations from their orc side, and most would prefer a visit from their human parent who, being typically less connected to the culture of the Nine Walls nation-state, rarely have the same ambitions for their children. Kutanju. Situated all the way down on the 2nd wall is the city of Kutanju, the second closest settlement to Lake Kokota and the ancestral orc enemies at Uzaro. Kutanju is situated quite close to Ukuja, the final settlement, and while a sizable settlement in its own right, it primarily serves as a supplementary extension to Ukuja. Its primary role is twofold. It functions as a prison and as a living training ground for Matanji soldiers. Soldiers are dispatched here for training exercises. Moreover, it serves as a facility for housing lesser demons, strategically bound here until they can serve for combat training. These demons are carefully chosen to be weak enough that a veteran can readily eliminate them, posing no threat to the broader Nine Walls region. Kutanju is another city like the capital, with a substantive number of aging veterans. Here, they play a crucial role in overseeing training of the next generation of demon hunters. Kutanju also detains more powerful demons, typically those that are too formidable to be easily vanquished, or those whose destruction might potentially result in unintended consequences. Because of the inherent risks of holding demons captive here, when outsiders visit Kutanju, they are escorted along a meticulously warded road, with vigilant archers keeping watch. Only ranking officials possess the privilege of deviating from the prescribed Kutanju routes, and even then, such departures require special permission. Ukuja. The first line of defense against Uzaro is the city of Ukuja, situated along the 1st wall. As the initial line of defense for the entire nation, it stands as an imposing city-sized fortress. This expansive settlement is inhabited by a combination of orc warriors and half-orc spellcasters, overseen by experienced veteran leaders. It is adorned with high watchtowers to survey the outer wall for miles, interspersed with barracks, training grounds, and temples of Majagwa, where injured orcs can acquire divine healings from the priests. Conflict here is frequent, as the Charaka of Uzaro are constantly testing the orc defenses. They have only been slightly lessened of late since the death of the Gorilla King. Given that Ukuja is often the first impression visitors have of the Nine Walls, the settlement can be overwhelmingly imposing. Bekyars in particular avoid coming within miles of it, well aware of the risk of arrows being launched in their direction. Nevertheless, for most individuals, despite the initial intimidation factor, Ukuja stands as an extraordinarily secure environment. Matanji warriors here are always ready and willing to put their lives on the line to ensure the safety of both their own citizens and outsiders alike. The Kallijae Elves. The Kallijae Elves were the first to leave the safety of the Hunter Gate and migrate deeper into the central Mwangi jungle. They began their sojourn with a noble goal, to combat the world's ills and confront their own potential for darkness. They found their purpose after they established the First Stand, a mobile base near Zaro. This location served a dual purpose. It provided a constant reminder of their potential descent into darkness through the presence of Angazan and his cruel Charaka, and it offered them an active arena in which to combat this malevolence. As time went on, the Kallijae acquired additional allies in their ongoing war of attrition against the forces of Angazan, the Matanji orcs during the Age of Darkness, and later the Shori Empire during the Age of Destiny. It was only when this latter group took over most of the fights and put the forces of Uzaro on the defensive that the Kallijae had a chance to reconsider their actions. In time, many Kallijae would come to regret their initial offensive against Izaro, and indeed today the true enemy of the forces of Angazan are really the Matanji orcs, more so than the Kallijae. In the peacetime, the Kallijae found a more serene and introspective purpose, one that allowed them to focus on their original goals without leading lives filled with ceaseless violence. In the center of Lake Okota, they found a mist-shrouded island, which they have since named the Island of Haven. Here they discovered the power of meditation, and created a system combining introspection and physical improvement to resist corruption. Kallijae settlements are conclaves on the small islands, mostly dotting the north of Lake Okota. Veiled in low-lying fogs, these islands are elusive, and vigilant elven patrols have kept them concealed from Charaka scouts all these long years. Among these islands, Haven stands out as the largest, situated a little further south than the others, near the heart of the lake. Structurally, Kallijae buildings rely on unadorned, readily available and structurally sound materials, typically hardwood and baked bricks. These materials are used to construct low-profile angular buildings with muted color palettes. While the Kallijae do not actively cultivate plants around these buildings, naturally occurring flora are allowed to thrive and only pruned when necessary. Many of these buildings are strategically located in valleys, near canyons, waterfalls, or cliffs, using such natural barriers to fortify their own defenses. Although the Kallijae view outsiders as potential allies in their ceaseless mission, they remain selective about revealing their culture, settlements, and homes. This carries over into their views on personal space as well. Even Kallijae who venture out into the wider world of Golarion often become fiercely protective of their sleeping spaces, even when intrusions are unavoidable. Kallijae elves run darker than other Mualajae kindreds, typically possessing deep ebony skin with thick, tightly curled black hair. Although their clothing may incorporate vivid hues, this is primarily due to the exceptionally vibrant natural dyes found in the Expanse, as in truth most Kallijae prefer their appearance to seem understated. Greed is considered a terrible vice in Kallijae culture, so outward expressions of wealth are rare. Elaborate, long braids, coils, and dread styles are Kallijae elves' most visible concessions to vanity, though they're often much more functional than they first seem. Kallijae are recognized for adorning themselves with gems as well, though again, these serve a practical purpose, serving as focal points for their thoughts and meditation. Though they do also frequently showcase discrete scarification patterns on their faces, a long-standing cultural tradition. Kallijae society is highly structured, and has often proved quite challenging for outsiders to understand. To be part of this community, individuals must adhere to strict rules, and those who fail to do so are said to be impure. Purity for the Kallijae means avoiding material wealth, jealousy, vanity, and other distractions from duty and purpose. This requires daily practices like meditation, academic study, and maintaining a harmony of body and soul. The Council of Six, comprised of those who have mastered self-discipline, lead the Kallijae communities and make crucial decisions, particularly regarding raids against threats like Izaro. Although council members lack formal titles, all Kallijae recognize their wisdom and authority. Below the council there is a hierarchy, including lesser masters, mentors, trainees, and acolytes. In a sense, the entire Kallijae polity functions as a large monastic order, and only those who cannot participate in combat, such as the injured, the elderly, or young children, are exempt from the expected duties of the society. This structured approach extends into all aspects of Kallijae culture, emphasizing preparedness and over-planning in their daily lives. Interestingly, for a seemingly monastic people, the Kallijae observe no gods. Instead, they hold those who exhibit knowledge, competence, and self-mastery in high regard, and they call these the Onyukayo. Typically, the Onyukayo are respected elders, who become cherished mentors for the younger generations. However, anyone displaying aptitude and the exceptional self-discipline taught by the Kallijae can become an esteemed Onyukayo. Although they do not participate in deific worship, they have many rituals that could be likened to worship. For example, they periodically undergo a cleansing ritual known as the unburdening. Outsiders who have witnessed or participated in this ritual often describe it as a form of prayer, although the Kallijae do not direct this practice towards any divine entity. While this ritual was originally intended to be conducted on the island of Haven, those unable to make the journey may do it at any spring-fed or freshwater pool. For the unburdening to achieve its full effect, it must follow a specific sequence of steps. First, one must reflect upon the experiences and deeds associated with each part of the body being cleansed, acknowledging the journey between the current unburdening and the previous one. Then an evaluation of these actions is conducted, forgiving any regrets and cherishing moments that bring joy. Finally, these memories are kept close, and any lessons to be learned are held even closer. The Kallijae follow the oral tradition, and they place their trust in knowledge, narratives, and skills that can be passed down through generations. Although outsiders may perceive this reliance as short-sighted, it has proven effective in preserving Kallijae traditions despite the relentless destruction of their settlements. Although some scholars may worry about the potential for information distortion in this practice, Kallijae storytellers possess an almost supernatural level of precision in their memory. As part of their coming-of-age ritual, all Kallijae must undertake a journey known as the Crucible of the Heart. During this journey, they venture away from Kallijae settlements for several years to test their resilience and gain first-hand knowledge of the outside world, before bringing it back to their community. During their crucible, young Kallijae leave with only the clothes on their back and the knowledge they possess. They must earn everything else, including food and shelter. Some choose to stay within the Mwangi Expanse's boundaries, seeking the comfort of familiarity and shorter, more apprenticeship-like journeys. Others embark on more adventurous journeys, traveling to distant lands, inspired by tales of other adventures before them and hoping to contribute to the oral tradition passed down between the generations. Despite their desire to look inwards, the Kallijae still consider themselves to be the great foes of Azaro. As the closest neighbors to the Matanji orcs, they remain the most likely to ally with them when fighting demons. Despite their close companionship on the battlefield, they rarely associate with Matanji socially, and few Kallijae can be found in the Nine Walls. The distasteful Matanji habit of consuming demon blood in combat might be a factor, but in truth this is partly a tactical decision. This way, if either elves or orcs are overrun and wiped out by demonic forces, the other group will not be compromised. The most important Kallijae settlement is the island city of Haven. The discovery of the island happened by chance. A retreating party pushed further out into Lake Okota than intended and became engulfed in the fog emanating from the lake's center. Lost in the fog, they found themselves stranded on a sizable island. While the fog provided cover for them and allowed them to tend their wounds, it also obscured any potential threats approaching. Strangely, despite spending days on the island, no one dared come close, not even the Charaka or other aggressive creatures in the lake. Capitalizing on the fog once again, the harrying party regrouped with their fellow Kallijae and reported their discovery. Thus began the existence of Haven, initially serving as a sanctuary for the injured. Over time, Haven expanded with the discovery of naturally occurring reflective pools and hot springs within the island's cave systems. Like all Kallijae strongholds, whether permanent or temporary, Haven is designed with the defense of its inhabitants in mind. The outermost structures consist of non-essential buildings, constructed with sturdy walls and clustered closely together with barriers in between. This arrangement facilitates rapid defense construction while safeguarding supplies and non-combatants during emergencies. These outer buildings serve as storage for weapons, dyeing and smoking facilities for hunted and foraged food, as well as stockpiles of lesser-used items for potential trade such as maps, trinkets, and books. Beyond the outer perimeter lie residential areas, food and clothing storage, training grounds, and open-air spaces for cooking and crafting. While these structures are less densely arranged in the outer ring, they are still staggered to provide tactical cover if needed. Finally, there are the healing and recovery spaces, designed as semi-open rooms, arranged in a large circular pattern above the underground cave system. This structure can be fully enclosed if necessary, allowing those inside to either retreat into the meandering springs or teleport away if magic users are present. In addition to its beautiful natural pools, the island of Haven has another majestic natural landmark, a tall formation of white rock that rises 300 feet above the rest of the island. Because of the dense fogs of the island, it can often be seen rising up above the mists on clearer days, appearing like a floating spike. Its unusual regular appearance is the subject of a number of legends, and the local tribes on the periphery of the lake believe it may have been built by titans. Another mythic tale claims that it is the spear of Gozere, which the deity thrust into the earth in order to bring forth the region's many rivers. The Kallijae Elves call it the Spire of Destiny, and it is one of the many sacred places to their people, and one they believe is deeply connected to the spiritual nature of the Isle of Haven. The city-state of Jaha. As described in my history section, Jaha was the easternmost city established by the Lirgeni, but it was a remote fortress city, established by a separatist group and never formally part of the country. After the Eye opened, a combination of Lirgeni refugees and peaceful Iruxi fleeing from the domineering Turwa lords traveled east to seek it out. They were not welcomed by the Jahans, but then, some 10 years ago, the city's founding sect vanished without a trace. The city's new inhabitants are this mix of Lirgeni and Iruxi refugees trying to uncover the secrets of this curious city. The coalition represents a gradually growing population of approximately 7,000 individuals. Although substantial, the city's infrastructure, left behind by the disappearance of the High Starseeker and his isolationist sect, has the capacity to accommodate far more residents. Leading the coalition are Ayakane Arsani, a young Lirgeni noble, and Barashi the Crossstar, an Iruxi astrologer. Assisting these two leaders is the esteemed Lirgeni astrologer Versen, who serves as Jaha's chief ambassador and oversees the Abendego relief mission. Shaped by Ayaken's political acumen, Barashi's societal guidance and restorative vision, and Versen's expanding network of connections, the city is evolving into a republic, although it still has no formal government or governing charter yet. Jaha is an introspective city, still grappling with its own identity. The city holds countless hidden secrets, both large and small, but its residents have learned to embrace its unexpected wonders. The Starseekers cult was reputed to be brutal and autocratic, and they enslaved the region's local Iruxi to build the city. The legacy of these cruel acts, however, is quite grand, impressive in a way that often simply beggars the imagination. It's also an old city, dating back to the early years of Lirgen. People who spend time here come to accept that they may know very little about their surroundings, and the knowledge they do gain often leads to more questions. Beyond the central terraces, the edges of the old city are inhabited by diverse jungle creatures. The jungle's flora blends within the city, concealing the carefully tended, night-blooming plants left by the previous inhabitants. The Jahaxi citizens and their occasional guests typically have irregular sleep patterns. Initially, when Jaha was re-established, the inhabitants followed a more typical day-night cycle, but they experienced strange dreams at night. Some dreamed of caring for the abandoned gardens around the city. Others had unsettling nightmares of ethereal entities dwelling beneath the streets. As a result, most citizens now take a long siesta during the day, so they can stay awake for more of the night. This has also served to make Jaha's social life largely nocturnal. Most businesses open their doors around sunset after the afternoon siesta and will stay up all night to offer their wares to the city's restless citizenry. While the city is well preserved, many areas require physical and spiritual restoration. The history of conflict between the previous Lirgeni overlords and their subjugated Iruxi populations is evident in places, so the current inhabitants, both Iruxi and Lirgeni, work hard to heal the city's wounds. Many Iruxis have settled in the subterranean network beneath Jaha, many of which were constructed by their people long before the Lirgeni built the city above them. In so doing, they've learned more about the original Iruxis than once lived there. Some have also discovered inscribed stones scattered throughout the city. Certain stones appear to be keys to the ancient Iruxi tombs below Jaha. Others seem to activate ancient portals located in the Lirgeni towers. At least a few of these seem to lead to demi-planes that might once have been populated by giants, as these areas are often scaled too large for humans or Iruxi to make use of. Some have also discovered mysteriously erected stones left behind with inscriptions in Iruxi claw hieroglyphs that offer more incomplete clues as to what might have happened. As these secrets have been unveiled, certain factions within the city, Lirgeni and Iruxi alike, are starting to question whether investigating all of this is even a good idea in the first place, especially considering how no one knows what actually happened to the city's previous occupants. Many in the city have turned their attention away from its mysteries and focused on more mundane pursuits. For instance, the disappearance of Lirgeni and Yamasan resulted in the loss of numerous traditional foods. Once beloved spices have become scarce, and the Lirgeni speckled peafowl and domesticated catfish populations have been completely wiped out. The mamasu plant, used to create starchy bases for flavorful fish and vegetable stews, is now nearly extinct. Jahaxis have been diligently searching for any traces of these plants and animals, as preserving cuisine is a powerful way of preserving culture. Remnants of the brilliance of the drowned nation have persevered in the Jahan Lirgeni population. However, before the Jahaxi coalition took form, Lirgen was also marked by a harmful sense of superiority. The past century has been humbling for the Lirgeni people. Despite this, the ambitions and traditions of Lirgen have not completely faded away, and today the majority of Lirgeni refugees reside in Jaha, where the city's great beauty can inspire them to imagine that once again they may rise to their former levels of greatness. However, great cities can fall swiftly, and unchecked ambition can lead to downfall. The recent disappearance of the previous Jahans was in part due to the darker aspects of Lirgeni culture, characterized by arrogance and prophetic ambitions. Those living in Jaha now bear the responsibility of reforming their culture in the aftermath of their predecessors' mistakes. Lirgeni people also have a history of technological innovation, and their creative spirit has been rekindled in Jaha's stable environment. Spirituality also remains an important aspect of Lirgeni culture, but it has evolved into a more personal and inclusive practice. The Sauk Brethren have transformed into the Sauk cosmology, embracing diverse experiences in their divinatory practice. Astrology now guides rather than dictates fate, and the Lirgeni have adopted a more subjective and personal approach. Another shift is that the Lirgeni population here have become more open about sharing their culture's arcane knowledge. Diplomatic missions by Lirgeni Jahaxis share their expertise in divination, prophecy, and astrology more readily with their neighbors. The connection between Lirgeni people and the stars is reflected in their fashion and culture. Many have constellations tattooed on their skin, documenting significant life events. Garments made by Lirgeni artisans are adorned with unique constellations, often based on existing star systems. These practices, once considered feminine, are now cherished by people of all genders as a means of cultural preservation in the Age of Lost Omens. Of the 7,000 or so members of the Jahaxi coalition, some 5,000 or so are Lirgeni. The other 2,000 are Iruxi. Jaha's Iruxi are a diverse group of lizard folk with various physical traits reflecting their origins from different Iruxi groups all across the Sodden Lands and the northern Mwangi region. Some of them have sticky pads on their feet, making them well suited for the city's terraced architecture. Others can blend into their surroundings, allowing them to explore uncharted parts of the city, and still others are larger physical specimens sporting impressive neck frills. The current Iruxi residents have continued to find evidence of the mistreatment of their predecessors. The Jahaxi Iruxi displayed patience initially, but tensions have begun to arise as they begin to hold the current Lirgeni population accountable for the actions of their cruel kinfolk. With the help of astrologer Barashi, the city's people have managed to prevent any major incidents of racial tension turning violent, and they continue to work to build trust between the city's human and Iruxi population. The Iruxis in Jaha have also adopted some Lirgeni clothing rituals, and many decorate their tails with star patterns representing constellations. They maintain a deep connection to astrology as well, with many Iruxi names referencing celestial bodies. They have also developed a rapport with Desna, many favoring her now over the traditional regional Iruxi deity of Gosrae. Iruxis play a vital role in Jaha's excavation and restoration efforts. They boldly explore underground networks and distant areas of the city, contributing to the Jahaxi's progress in discovering its secrets. They also know of unique methods to gain intelligence unknown to the Lirgeni, such as communing with the past by gathering Iruxi remains found in the alcoves of the city. Skilled oracles guide these rituals, which often yield more detail than physical exploration has. Points of interest in Jaha include the circulation. Beneath the city, there is a complex network of tunnels and alcoves commonly referred to as the circulation. These underground spaces contain old ruins, plazas, and meeting areas with high ceilings. They are adorned with artistic depictions of star systems and constellations, acting as navigation aids. Some pathways lead to intricately designed catacombs with mysterious sarcophagi, and these catacombs seem to rearrange themselves over time. Jaha's fortresses. 4 fortresses, named Keshigi, the Star Fortress, Teshigi, the Sun Fortress, Semshigi, the Sky Fortress, and Hershigi, the Moon Fortress, frame the city's boundaries. 3 of them have been reactivated and now serve as bases for the Jahaxi militia. These fortresses are still being studied and contain valuable knowledge about celestial phenomena. The Dusk Market, or the Jabiti. Located around the perimeter of the Kewamasi, this market extends into the neighboring streets. It includes businesses like the Star-Crossed Charts, known for its reliable maps of the Mwangi Expanse. The market offers various astrological products and services as well. The Kewamesi, or the Shrine of Beyond. At the heart of Jaha, the Kewamesi is a monumental domed building. It features an illusion of the night sky, meticulously replicated in real time, which is carefully guarded. The dome occasionally opens and causes the city to shake when it does so. The base of the shrine is a bustling area with residences, shops, bioluminescent fungi, stores, tattoo parlors, fortune-telling pools, restaurants, magical coffee shops, indoor gardens, and even a school called the Saucratic Academy. The Waystones. Arcane waystones, constructed during Jahan's rule, are scattered throughout the city. These mysterious stones have various purposes, and can transport individuals to different locations when activated, including places both within and beneath Jaha. Beyond the city-state of Jaha, the greater region of the Napsoon foothills include a few other notable points of interest. Mount El-Sel. Like Mount Dawama in the southern reaches of the Mwangi region, Mount El-Sel is a towering mountain, dwarfing all other mountains in the Napsoon range and piercing the clouds. Mount El-Sel is one of the few places with snow-covered peaks on the continent of Garund, and its upper heights are inhospitable to humans because of the reduced oxygen. It's said that upon these lofty heights, a secret kingdom of cloud giants can be found. Even before reaching the summit, Mount El-Sel provides a unique vantage, providing a clear view across the barrier range. From here, one can see the stark contrast between the sandy deserts north of the range and the tropical jungles south of the range. Mount El-Sel also feeds the Mbembe River, upon which the city-state of Jaha is built. The glacier water running off this great mountain remains cool, even in the lowlands, and it always seems clear and safe to drink. The Dim Gate. May Pahano was a seer in Lirgen who lived before the Age of Lost Omens. In 4601 she detected a number of ill omens that together seemed to indicate a monumental calamity was rapidly approaching. These omens led her to a shrine in the Napsoon Mountains, where she was contacted by an otherworldly undead entity named Stewart. From him, she alone received a detailed prediction of the onset of the Eye of Abendego. Although she attempted to share her predictions, no others among the Sauk brethren believed her, as her visions could not be confirmed by anyone else's divinations. They essentially viewed May as a madwoman. Finding no audience among her peers, she retreated to her mountain shrine. Following the fall of Aradin, May managed to re-establish contact with Cierc, who offered obscure lore and knowledge of other solar systems, even other galaxies. In exchange for this vast knowledge, Cierc asked only that May build a bridge between their two worlds. This was the Dim Gate. Before long, Cierc convinced May that she would not be able to complete the Dim Gate during the course of her mortal lifetime, so soon she began on the path to Lichdom. Meanwhile, as we know, many of the surviving Sauk brethren were attempting to flee their lands, and some remembered May's predictions that they had ignored. They came to her seeking guidance. She convinced the brethren's leadership to commit mass suicide as an act of atonement. In truth, she wished to use their deaths to fuel her own transformation into a lich. Since her transformation, May has tirelessly continued her work on the Dim Gate, along with Kyan, her vampire partner, and a small army of undead warriors who served them. The Tomb of the Thousand Tusks. In the lower reaches of the Napsoon foothills, surrounded by the boggy marshlands of the eastern Sodden Lands, there lies an elephant graveyard, named the Tomb of the Thousand Tusks. Since the collapse of Lirgen, the elephants who once journeyed here have mostly disappeared, but other entities have moved in. Lord Kasedasad is an elder Azura who dwells in a vast dungeon complex beneath the Tomb of the Thousand Tusks, exulting over a decades-old prize. In his ivory maze cathedral beneath a poison-smeared elephant skull, he hides the head of a servant of Sinashakti named Shay of the Five Dawns. Little is known of who she was, except that she was herself an imperial lord once, and before that an oracle from distant Vudra. How Lord Kasedasad came to possess her skull is also not known. You can learn more about Sinashakti in my Azata religion video, and of the Azuras in my Azura Divs and Clipoths religion video. Sele. Just north of Jaha, situated within a natural bowl in the terrain, lie the red granite wall and temples of the city of Sele, which once marked the grand capital of an ancient Mauxi culture. Tragedy struck the city when its limestone foundations gave way, and the whole thing partially collapsed into an underground riverbed. The collapse also destroyed the extensive network of dikes that originally allowed the city's inhabitants to reclaim miles of swampland for cultivation. The loss of Sele as a capital was less destructive to its people than was the loss of their farmland, and while many villages adopted the nomadic lifestyle of the northern Zenj tribes, it's likely that this disaster may also have hastened the northward Mauxi migration out of the Expanse. I will discuss the Mauxi people in more detail when I cover Thuvia in the future, but the bulk of their population moved north after the Sele collapse to become a significant minority people of both Thuvia and Rahadum. Today, artifacts from Sele and its multiple jungle-consumed satellite cities fetch high prices from the Mauxi diasporas in Thuvia and Rahadum, especially among the young and wealthy, many of whom view Sele as a myth-steeped homeland calling out for reclamation and restoration.